This is Koreatown. My name is Hwang Bae Kim. You watch LA City View, Channel 35. Our city, our channel.
In LA this week.
Fines associated with homelessness, such as jaywalking and sleeping on the sidewalk, stricken from the record books. If people who are unsheltered show up to citation clinics such as this one, they get free food and haircuts as well. I'm Gil Reyes with the story next.
I'm Anna Marcos. A new focus in arresting sex traffickers in the Valley. More on that in the first part of our special report coming up.
Eye exams, ESL classes, and a food pantry. Just some of the services offered at the new Karsh Family Social Service Center. That's up next. Hello and welcome to LA This Week. Thanks for joining us. I'm Yana Kay. Well, we've all seen it here and across the nation. Hate crimes are up, and the fear is those numbers will rise, with our nation still divided over the presidential election results. But here in LA, law enforcement declares such behavior won't be tolerated. Gil Reyes reports.
This is proof that people of color aren't the only targets of hate crime. This art gallery in Boyle Heights was recently defaced with racist graffiti. The gallery owner is a white man working in the mostly Latino community of Boyle Heights.
It doesn't matter which ethnicity it is. It doesn't have to be a minority ethnicity. The law is very specific.
LAPD Chief Charlie Beck, the LA City Attorney's Office, and their partners at the county taking a stand against hate crime. Officials say incidents nationally have spiked since the presidential election season, when polarizing opinions on immigration, religion, and the war on terror took center stage. And they continue to.
In this country, there is freedom of speech, and not every racially insensitive remark is a crime. There has to be a crime. Either you're interfering with someone's civil rights or you are committing a crime such as vandalism, assault.
And that's happened a lot when other issues like gentrification and sexual intolerance are thrown in the mix. The FBI says hate crimes nationally increased 6% last year, with crimes against Muslims seeing the biggest spike.
Here in LA County, officials reported a 24% increase last year. The biggest targets were transgender women. Incidents against Latinos also rose. Chief Beck assures people they won't be deported for complaining.
One of the reasons we take a strong stance against immigration enforcement is because that tears the bonds of a community. That creates the opportunity for hate crime. That creates a sense of other, a sense of not belonging.
And even though the graffiti on the gallery's door has since been removed, the message from local law enforcement remains clear, and that is, if you are a victim of a hate crime, don't hold it back. Tell authorities immediately by calling the number at the bottom of your screen, 1-877-ASK-LAPD. In Boyle Heights, I'm Gil Reyes for LA This Week.
That hotline is available 24 hours a day. Well, the North Valley is a known hotbed for prostitution and sex trafficking. But police and city leaders are working to clean up the streets with a new focus on catching the worst offenders and helping the victims. Anna Marcos has more in the first part of a special report, Trafficked Prey. But first, a warning. What you are about to see and hear may be disturbing and graphic.
But how do I know she's a prostitute?
You are looking at an alleged John. Police say he was caught with his pants down.
You have the right to remain silent. Do you understand?
Yes. I didn't know she was a prostitute. I just saw the girl. I was talking to her.
According to police, the suspect was doing more than just talking. He was caught masturbating as he stopped to pick up an alleged prostitute, who turned out to be an LAPD undercover cop.
He had his genitalia out. He was masturbating.
And you just happen to have your pants down?
I didn't have my pants down.
The area near Lankershim and San Fernando is ground zero in the North Valley for prostitution. And tonight, the Valley's Human Trafficking Task Force launches a sting operation to target the Johns, men looking to pay a prostitute for sex. The LAPD has an undercover cop walking the streets.
I mean, yeah, there's times it's scary, but she knows
There's people in the shadows that you can't see right now that are her protection.
Dr. Stephanie Powell, a former 30-year LAPD veteran in Vice, who now runs Journey Out, a center for survivors of prostitution and human trafficking, takes us through a typical sex transaction in the dark.
And then he's going to pull up. You will walk over to the car, and then he'll usually ask you something like, "Are you dating?" So you'll say yes. And then he'll say, "How much for?" The next thing he knows, a police car is now behind him and he's getting arrested.
But police are out for much bigger game than just a John caught with his pants down or a prostitute walking the streets. Lieutenant Mark Evans, who runs the Human Trafficking Task Force, says girls walking the streets are often coerced or forced into the life against their will, and many are beaten and abused. In other words, many are victims of sex trafficking.
I would say 90%. Basically, every girl that's out here has a pimp. Almost all pimps are traffickers. I've done over 4,000 cases. A case that stands out in my mind is a guy who used to beat his girls with an electrical cord. But when you get beat enough with an electrical cord, that might break your spirit. So that's kind of how you could be forced into doing something like that.
In the years since they created the Human Trafficking Task Force, police in the Valley have switched their focus and turned the tables on the offenders. Where they used to arrest 10 prostitutes to every John, they now arrest 6 Johns to every prostitute. And they're going heavily after the pimps and the traffickers.
These guys are very violent. They're gang members.
Police are now changing the way they treat the prostitutes.
The girls, we look at them as victims.
They send them into diversion programs to get them out of the life with services like counseling and job training.
This has been a huge paradigm shift in terms of victim-centered policing.
Sex and human trafficking have become the third most profitable industry after guns and drugs. And it happens here in the U.S., not just in third world countries. Another heartbreaking reality on these streets, 10% of the prostitutes are minors. Lieutenant Evans remembers one 13-year-old prostitute he stopped.
She told me that since she was 10 years old, her dad sold her to his friends for crack cocaine.
It's completely unacceptable. How do you have 13 and 14-year-old kids being trafficked for sex in the San Fernando Valley and everybody turn a blind eye?
City leaders pressure the cops, who pressure the traffickers, the pimps, the Johns, and the prostitutes. And as this undercover cop makes her rounds, one of the big targets appears out of the dark. Our camera barely manages to catch him. Police say he is a known gang member and sex trafficker. He tries to recruit the undercover cop, thinking she's a prostitute, then disappears as quickly as he came.
It's just really a game of cat and mouse.
Sounds dangerous.
It can be very dangerous.
But the work is paying off. Arrests have tripled since the creation of the task force a year ago. I'm Anna Marcos for LA This Week.
And next week, tune in for the second part of our special report as we find out how one victim fell prey to sex trafficking and how she got out. Well, cycling out of homelessness can be especially tough if you have tickets and citations holding you back. But the city attorney's office has devised a way to forgive these infractions if people who are homeless work it off. And they get free haircuts to boot. Gil Reyes has more from Sylmar. Gil.
Well, Yana, for many of our fellow Angelinos who find themselves homeless, this could be a way to totally turn their lives around. They're called citation clinics. This one's in Sylmar, and basically people who are unsheltered show up and negotiate to have their fines and tickets stricken from the record books. And all they have to do is volunteer for community service. Many times this leads to full-time jobs.
Simply showing up to the clinic gets you free food, a haircut, and shower. But Nicole Adriano, who is homeless, mostly looks forward to having her fines forgiven.
Everything traffic to just not paying my stuff on time, and it just doubles it. I don't even know. All I know is like over $3,000.
Edgar Santiago says he's racked up $20,000 in fees for offenses like riding his bicycle at night without a light.
And it just kept on adding and adding and adding and adding.
but relief through the LA City Attorney's Office homeless court and citation clinics.
We say, we're going to dismiss these citations and tickets, but in exchange, we're asking you to do community service, something that benefits you or benefits the community.
Gina DiDomenico from the City Attorney's Office says people can work off fines for minor offenses by volunteering for nonprofits like the LA Conservation Corps, New Directions, the Weingart Center, and Chrysalis. The City Attorney's Office recently honored these service providers for not only helping veterans and the environment, but also for providing people who are homeless a chance to work off fines too expensive to ever pay.
We actually have had several folks that have found jobs through this. One individual was actually hired by his service provider. Another went through Chrysalis's job training program and for the first time found a job as a tutor, first time in his life.
So you don't mind doing community service?
No, I should don't. You have to pay somehow.
I would do it. I would do it. I would do it in a heartbeat. I mean, rather than pay, yes.
Haircuts, showers, and starting over with a clean slate. In Sylmar, I'm Gil Reyes for LA This Week.
In its first year, the City Attorney's Office has dismissed some 350 infractions through their citation clinics. Well, a Jewish synagogue in Koreatown's Miracle Mile believes in giving back to its religion by giving to others. Anna Marcos has more on the grand opening of the Karsh Family Social Service Center.
The singing makes for a great housewarming, as does the mezuzah, a scroll of biblical origin which gets pressed into the doorway of the new Karsh Family Social Service Center. It signifies Jewish faith. Here at the Wilshire Boulevard Temple, it's not enough for parishioners to have faith in God, but in helping neighbors in the community as well. The new dental clinic is one of the free services offered. Also included, free eye care and exams, legal aid, counseling, ESL and citizenship classes, and a food pantry.
We wanted to reach out to this community, show what Jews are about. The Tikkun Olam, that we live that, healing the world, is part of our heritage, it's part of our culture, and we wanted to be good neighbors.
We got lucky in life, and I'm only so happy to give back to people who need it.
You're looking at the brand new food pantry. The center has already served about 1,000 people since its soft opening several months ago, but with this grand opening, it is now ready to welcome the entire community.
This is an extraordinary neighborhood. It's one of the most ethnically and religiously diverse neighborhoods in America. About 70% of the people in this neighborhood do not speak English at home as their primary language. It's a poor immigrant community.
For temple worshipers, the services are much needed in an area where a third of adults go hungry at least some of the time, and about 1 in 4 families live below the poverty level. The parishioners answer, faith in action. I'm Anna Marcos for LA This Week.
For more information on the free services offered, you can visit karshcenter.org. While clean buses are slowly but surely becoming the next big thing in LA, and Metro is heading on a road that promises a cleaner future for us all. Rasha Goel explains.
It's official, this natural gas bus is ready to hit the road as it becomes the 900th and final vehicle to complete Metro's clean air fleet.
These buses together deliver about 650,000 miles of service per week. The new Flyer bus also boasts the highest reliability in the Metro fleet.
The XN40 bus features enhanced amenities for people with disabilities, including much more space for passengers in wheelchairs. Officials say the bus will serve a large ridership.
Nearly 1 million people a day ride our buses. About 80%, maybe upwards of 80% of the 1.4 million people that use our system today ride buses.
Officials say it's really about helping move people through the region safely. But more than that, it's about the health and well-being of every Angelino.
These are CNG buses, so we're not having the dirty, belching diesel buses that pollute the air. You're not going to be asphyxiated when you're behind these buses.
Officials are calling it the 40-foot dream machine that will not only transform the way we all get around, but will also allow for a breath of fresh air. I'm Rasha Goel for LA This Week.
Now, according to Metro, this delivery completes an order for new CNG buses that make up 40% of the current fleet. Well, sure, we need more public parks in LA, but how about one on your usually quiet street? Well, some are saying, not in my neighborhood, as the city considers what to do next with the Silver Lake Reservoir. Gil Reyes has more.
What we do know is the now drained Silver Lake Reservoir will be refilled to its former glory. But what to do with the actual site? Well, opinions vary.
We do know that the fences need to be taken down so that the community can access this green space. Our community, our children, our senior citizens are crying out for more park space in this city, and this is a huge opportunity to do that.
But others fear a park will increase traffic, reduce parking, and turn their neighborhood into something similar to Disneyland.
I don't know why we need to entertainmentize the reservoir. We already have Echo Park. We already have Griffith Park. We already have the zoo.
Silver Lake residents sound off at this community meeting at Marshall High School.
At this point, the decision for what happens in the reservoir for the long term is really not a Department of Water and Power issue per se. It's really a community issue. And some of the ideas range from return it to the way it was historically to let people closer to the water.
Everybody here might have differences in viewpoints and differences in opinions, but it's very important that we respect each other, that we listen to each other.
The lake was drained last summer to build a new pipeline. City officials say water will slowly begin coming back starting this May, with a full refill expected by springtime 2018. Also very important to note that the water that will be here will be used solely for aesthetics, as open reservoirs for drinking water sources are now banned by the state. In the meantime, city officials are considering what to do with all 96 acres of this site, which at 96 acres is even bigger than Disneyland.
It's your duty to turn this into a city park.
But others say a park with special events and live music would also cause unwanted noise.
And you know, NIMBY is a word that nobody likes to be tagged with, the Not in My Backyard acronym. And I say, you know, tag me that. Go ahead, call me that, because I don't think there's anything wrong with standing up for your community.
In Silver Lake, I'm Gil Reyes for LA This Week.
Well, what used to be a gritty industrial hideaway for artists is becoming more and more family-friendly. Downtown's Arts District is changing, recently opening a park to accommodate its newer residents. Gil Reyes shows us.
3, 2, 1.
Congratulations! It's amazing. This is a first city-sponsored park in the Arts District. We're really excited to have it. It was a community-driven design process, which is exciting, and through that process, we were able to get a kid area, a performance area, get some murals here, some art, areas for people to sit down, enjoy a cup of coffee, have something to drink, more green, more trees, and we got to do more of this because this area is transforming.
Downtown Councilman Jose Huizar describing LA's new Arts District. Once a seedy, hidden gem for creative types, is now booming with new residents and development. Apartments, restaurants, and startups are popping up, and expected soon, a pair of 58-story residential skyscrapers.
Downtown LA is really becoming a lot more family-friendly, so it's great to see a park like this open up where you can take your kids, your dog, just have a nice day.
You know, this park was really on its deathbed just not too long ago. There was some designs for it, but the money did not come through. We stepped in, provided $1.8 million, we moved some money around to make it a reality.
Contaminated soil also delayed the park's opening, but it's all gone now. So are the days of cheap rent in the Arts District. To soften the blow of gentrification, the city reaches out to artists who remain. One way is to have the park's murals constantly changing.
So every 6 to 8 months, we will be selecting a new artist to create a design. And we'll be reaching out to you guys for your response and for your input.
Helping to keep the art in the Arts District. In downtown LA, I'm Gil Reyes for LA This Week.
The half-acre park sits on 5th and Hewitt Streets next to the Earth Cafe. While heading north to Council District 2, where the power of social media is helping residents clean up their neighborhood. Anna Marcos has more.
Nature merged with the digital age at this Valley Glen community cleanup. Some teams did the traditional cleaning, while others went door to door, alerting residents to a new social media app called MyLA311. It encourages you to get involved in cleanups in city government while earning points in your app that go towards prizes.
There were flyers all around school, so I decided to come and join.
So what we wanted to do is get a cleanup going, because that's one of the best ways to kind of teach people about city services and work together on a good project that benefits everybody.
About 50 volunteers, both young and old, hit the streets picking up trash and raking leaves. So how dirty were these leafy streets?
We're very fortunate. Actually, the neighborhood is pretty clean compared to other parts of Los Angeles, but it doesn't mean that we don't have some work to do.
Residents of the community once in a while see sofas, see alleys that are dirty.
Well, okay, it was a little dirty, but at the end of the day, a pristine park and neighborhood. And some volunteers even used the MyLA311 app to earn some extra brownie points. I'm Anna Marcos for LA This Week.
A new development will soon take shape in South LA. Finding a job for people with criminal records just got easier, and donations come pouring in for members of the military. All these stories in City Beat. The Los Angeles City Council approved the Reef Project, a mixed-use high-end development that will add 1,400 apartments and condos near downtown's Fashion District. The project at Washington and Broadway includes a pair of residential buildings, each towering over 30 stories, as well as retail and commercial areas. Many community advocates oppose the development, saying it will displace thousands of low-income residents. The council is working on an agreement with the developer to contribute nearly $24 million toward affordable housing and other community benefits. The City Council also approved an ordinance that would restrict employers from asking job applicants about criminal convictions until a conditional offer of employment has been made. The legislation would remove the box from job applications that ask candidates about their criminal record. Los Angeles joins the federal government, dozens of cities and states to ban the box. The ordinance becomes law on January 1st. The citywide policy would apply to city contractors and private employers with 10 or more employees. Community groups gathered at City Hall before the vote to support the initiative.
LA is a city of hope, and that we can recognize that people who accept the mistakes that they made and look to be able to move forward in their lives.
LAX employees donated personal care items to the Bob Hope Hollywood USO, a nonprofit that serves troops and military families across Central and Southern California. The items were collected from airport employees, local businesses, and community organizations. Active duty military personnel and their families can stay at the center for up to 24 hours.
They can sleep, eat, shower, everything. So toiletry items are a huge thing, as well as, like I said, the non-perishable food items as well.
Well, parks and trees go hand in hand, but keeping those trees alive and well during a drought is a challenge, one that's being met head-on through an innovative approach. It took an army of over 200 volunteers, a public-private partnership, and a lot of good, hard work. But Elysian Park is looking forward to shadier days ahead.
In the last few years, parks all over the city of Los Angeles have lost thousands of trees, and City Plants is partnering with Rec and Parks to try to reforest the park and make sure that we're planting trees that are going to last into a drier climate.
That means planting smarter. With the help of the Department of Water and Power, seedlings will be encased in something called a land life cocoon, which helps the seedlings hold water over the course of several months. Officials say planting trees saves energy.
Shade trees will reduce the need for electricity by increasing the coolness in the surrounding area, and it will also result in lowering many of the neighbors' bills where the shade trees are planted.
The aim is to restore Elysian Park's tree canopy, which has long been in decline. With partners including Office Depot, the California Conservation Corps, and the Arbor Day Foundation. Residents are stepping forward and looking toward the future.
So when you're putting these trees in the ground, you're doing so much more than making a difference just in this park, but you're changing the lives of the people who live around here and the people of Los Angeles.
It's really nice to think about coming back here in 20 years and saying, oh, I planted that tree, and look, it's this big now, and it's contributed to this place being more beautiful.
The renewal project was made possible in part by a grant from the Arbor Day Foundation. Well, looking for a unique piece of art or craft? Well, you may find it at the Echo Park Craft Fair, then enjoy the sights and sounds of the annual community parade. And where can you find tons of snow in the city? We'll tell you. All this in this week's Things to Do. The Echo Park Craft Fair is a 2-day art and design event in Silver Lake, featuring work by over 120 artists and drawing thousands of guests. The fair has become a pioneering showcase for the thriving makers movement. Featuring a curation of work from some of the finest artists in America, the fair celebrates innovators creating in a vast array of mediums, from ceramics to jewelry, perfumery to clothing design, woodworking to fabric art. Fashion designers and retail buyers flock to the market to source products, ignite ideas, and fuel creative inspiration. Don't miss it on December 10th and 11th at Mac Sennett Studios, located at 1215 Bates Avenue. For more, visit EchoParkCraftFair.com. Also in Echo Park, the historic community will host the annual Echo Park Community Parade. Thousands of residents from Echo Park and surrounding neighborhoods sit on the sidelines to watch the 50-plus parade entries, including Santa, celebrate the holiday season. This year's parade theme is celebrating the artists of Echo Park, and it takes place on Saturday, December 10th from 11 to 2 p.m. The parade route is along Sunset Boulevard in Echo Park from Vince Scully Avenue to Park Avenue. For more, visit EchoParkCommunityParade.com. Play in more than 70 tons of snow with 3 slides and a snowfield, and get into the holiday spirit by giving back at the free 6th annual Studio City Winter Family Festival at Studio City Recreation Center and Beeman Park. Live music by local schools and community groups, photos with Santa, face painting, gingerbread house decorating, crafts, restaurant sampling, holiday card making for the troops, a photo booth, and more. Help others by donating canned, packaged food, new unwrapped toys, and other items, and be entered to win gift baskets. It all takes place Sunday, December 11th from 1 to 4 p.m. And that's a look at some things to do. Well, that's going to do it for this edition. I'm Yana Kay, and from all of us here at LA This Week, thanks for joining us. A reminder that you can catch us online at lacityview.org. You can also follow and like us on Facebook. We'll see you back here next week for more of LA This Week.
Bulky item pickup? Call 311, the toll-free number for non-emergency services. 311, your one call to City Hall.
Good morning, good morning. If I could have everybody please take your seat. I want to welcome you to your Los Angeles City Council. This council meets every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. Today's date is Wednesday, December 7th. Mr. Clerk, we do have a quorum. Would you call the roll?
Blumenfield, Bonner, Buscaino, Cedillo, Englander, Harris, Dawson, Weezer, Koretz, Corin, Martinez, Farrell, Price, Rue, West, and 12 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
Okay, why don't we quickly run through the agenda?
Very good, sir. Approval of the minutes.
Weezer moves. Martinez seconds. Next.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
Harris Dawson moves. Price seconds.
Mr. President, the Department of Building and Safety recommends that Council receive and file items 1F, I, J, K, L, and U, inasmuch as the liens have been paid in full, and item 1X, inasmuch as the property was determined to be an owner-occupied single-family dwelling and thus exempt from lien processing. Further, there is a request to continue items 1T and V to February 1, and as well as to continue item 3 to January 13.
Okay, so without objection, that will be the order?
Mr. President, items 1
In fact, I'm told we want to hold item 1W, so if I forget 1W, we'll hold. Okay, continue.
Very good, sir. Items 1 through 3 are items noticed for public hearing.
Do we have cards?
Yes, sir. Cards on all 3.
Okay, let's continue.
Although, excuse me, sir, item 3 was continued to January 13.
Okay, so let's move on to the next section.
Very good, sir. Items 4 through 15 are items for which public hearings have been held. Committee reports for items 13 and 14 have been posted and circulated for Council's consideration. Further, a community impact statement in support of item 15 from the Valley Village Neighborhood Council was received after the posting of today's agenda.
Okay, let's hold items 7, 13, and 15. Let us prepare to vote. Mr. Rue?
5 and 11 special and hear them together, please.
Yes, we can. Let's prepare to vote on the remaining items. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
I did it backwards again. 12 ayes.
Thank you. Continue.
Mr. President, items 16 through 21 are items for which public hearings have not been held. 10 votes are required for consideration.
Okay, so without objection, those items are now before this body. Do you have cards?
Yes, sir. Cards on 16, 18, 19, 20, 21, and 23.
Let's hold those items and vote on the remaining items. Let's open the roll. Close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Okay, that brings us where?
Mr. President, that takes council back to presentations or items called special.
Okay, Mr. Price, you know what? I want to ask you to make a special introduction. We do have a guest with us today. Assemblyman, would you come over by Mr. Price's...
Yeah, we have with us today, newly from re-election, Assemblymember Sebastian Ridley Thomas is with us today. Let's give him a hand.
Give him a round of applause.
54th Assembly District, proudly serving. Thank you, sir.
Okay, now I want to look over to my left to Mr. Harris Dawson. Are you ready to proceed with your presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. I appreciate everyone joining us for this presentation that I'm very, very proud to make and very excited to make. I couldn't think of a better labor leader and servant of our city to honor here today. I bring to the City Council and the Chamber the one and only Frank Lima. as we honor him as he leaves his position as head of UFLAC and assumes his position as the 10th District Vice President of the International Associations of Firefighters in the United States of America. Let's give
him a round of applause.
A big round of applause. I think Frank is a friend to so many of us around the Horseshoe. I had occasion to meet him about 3 years ago when I started thinking about running for city council, and I sat in Frank's office, and when you sit in the labor leader's office, you expect to hear about contracts and work rules and all that. We spent 3 hours talking about what a privilege it was to you to serve the city of Los Angeles as a firefighter. And I walked out of that room saying to myself, this is the kind of guy that makes young boys want to grow up to be firefighters all around the country. And so Frank is a native of Los Angeles. He grew up wanting to be a firefighter. I imagine he met a firefighter like himself when he was young. He took the LAFD test at 18 years old, passed it at that time, and became a captain at the age of 28, where he has served as a captain to, I got that right? 28? Right. So you were 28 when you started, and you did it for 24 years. That's right? So he served us for almost a quarter of a century. He got into the leadership and became a leader in his local, helped this city get through a very, very tough time, made sure he pressed us to reopen stations that we'd closed during tough economic times, and also has been a fighter in the labor movement more broadly, but with firefighters in particular, to make sure that there is social justice, that there is inclusion. We started talking a while ago about a fire academy at Dorsey High School. We're going to get that done, Council President, very, very soon. So Frank is just salt of the earth, the kind of person we can all hope to be, and the kind of servant that we can all hope to be. I want to call up one of our fire commissioners, Jimmy Woods Gray, to say a few words about our honoree today.
Commissioner Gray, welcome.
Good morning, Mr. President, my friend, and all of my friends around the Horseshoe. Good morning to all of you. I'm Jimmy Woods Gray, a fire commissioner. I live in the South LA area, Crenshaw District, and I have had the great pleasure of working with Frank Lima. I met Frank Lima at an AFL-CIO conference. I had not been confirmed yet, but he said, I heard about you, and I went over, he spoke, and I went over and introduced myself. From that day till now, we have had a very great working relationship. The people of Los Angeles and the firefighters for the Los Angeles city could not have had a better representative for them as a union leader. Frank is truly about working and looking out for his people. At the same time, he looks out for the city. We've had such a great working relationship. No adversary, no controversy. I mean, it's been very smooth. And I've been so happy to be on the commission with him being at the helm of this union. So I want to congratulate him. It's our loss. I really was sad to hear him go. But everyone needs to move up. So let's let him move up. Actually, it's probably better for the city of L.A. Now we have assets at the international level, national level. And we're also going to have a great replacement with Tony Gamboa here, and we're so excited for him. Thank you again for recognizing Frank Lima, and we wish him the very best.
Give him a round of applause.
Thank you so much. And now we'll hear from our Chief Terrazas.
Good morning, Mr. President.
Morning,
City Council. It's a pleasure to be here. As I was thinking about what I would say today, my recollections of Frank go back to 1994, where he was a firefighter just off probation, and I was a Captain 1 at Fire Station 94 near Dorsey High School. And my recollections are that Frank was truly probably the best probationary firefighter I ever came across. Very aggressive. His training drills were outstanding. I vividly remember him responding to fires during the earthquake, the Northridge earthquake. And I don't know if you remember this, Frank. We had a fire in an apartment building. I was inside crawling on my hands and knees, and Frank went to the roof and cut a hole. And we made it work, and we put the fire out. Little did I know that 20 years later I'd run into Frank again. in his role as union president. And we have had a very good relationship. The thing that I think about in that role was the number of vacancies that we were faced with a record number of retirements coming up. And through our collaboration, we worked together to get our Coder to Sign Hire program, our members working up and down. And the good news, thanks to your support and the support of Mayor Garcetti, we are over the hump and we have light at the end of the tunnel, and that's because of Frank. The other thing that's important to me is that the Firefighter Survival Training Program, Frank and I did that together. I think that was the first time a union president and a fire chief did that. He told me to jump out the window head first down a ladder, and I asked him, really? And he said, yes. I said, okay, you first. And we did it together. So, Frank, thank you for your collaboration, and I wish you all the best in your new position with the IAFF. Congratulations.
Thanks, Chief.
So, Mr. President, are there any members on the queue?
Not a one. I don't know. I don't know if it's because there are several members on the queue. I do want to start it off, and first, though, I want to ask: can I have some real silence? Shh, because we're talking about a man who has dedicated his life to public service. We're talking about a man who would go to work every day not knowing if he was going to come home at night to be with his family and his friends. We're talking about a man who put his colleagues before himself. We're talking about a man who is a natural leader. We're talking about an individual that stepped in at a time when the department needed leadership, when the department needed to really come together, and all of a sudden he appeared. And I have to say this to everyone that's here. It has been a pleasure to deal with you, Mr. President. But the skills that you have displayed where it relates to labor negotiations and the way that you take care of not just your members, but the fairness that you show to all of the employees in the city of Los Angeles, the way that you work with PD, the way that you work with the other bargaining units, the way that you work with your fire chief is just, I can't put that into words, but the friendship that you've shown me, the relationship that we have developed over the years is something that I will cherish and that I will never, ever forget. Whenever I have needed you, whenever this council has needed you, without hesitation, that you've been there. And I'm going to miss you. I'm going to miss you tremendously, but I'm happy for you. I know you're going to do well. But I think more importantly is that with Big Tone, with Tony, we're going to be okay. And we're going to be okay with Tony, and that's why I'm not concerned, because he had the opportunity to work at your side. And so I think that things are going to go on. We're not going to miss a beat because of the work that you put in training individuals that were going to have to step in and do the job that you have done so well. But we will miss you, especially, I just have to say it again, one of the most difficult things that we do is sit down and try to have negotiations with our employees. And because of President Lima, we have always come to a compromise that works, and I think your leadership has been every bit as important as the CAOs, the mayors, myself, and the other members of the EERC. So I ask, let's give President Lima another round of applause, because he deserves it. He's a president's president. Plus, he's funnier than all get out too. So, with that said, I'd like to acknowledge Mr. Englander.
All right, Lima time. And for those of you that know Frank, we all know what that means. This is hard for me. Watching you all growing up, moving on, and I know you'll always be here. You and I have gotten very, very close, not just as the chair of public safety, but as friends. And it wasn't always the relationship with you, Flack, that we have today. I'm being very gentle in saying that the relationship we have, that what you've heard not only from Marquise and President, what you're going to hear from all the colleagues probably in a moment, is something that we wouldn't have heard around this horseshoe and talking about an outgoing president of UFLAG. You walked in literally into a burning house. You inherited a nightmare of understaffing, of outdated equipment, of morale issues, of being dragged through the mud publicly in the press. Our firefighters, our first responders, the best and the brightest by far of any department in this country that do more with less. You inherited that. You also inherited a relationship that was really tough in this building in really trying times. And there were no victims. Everybody became a survivor because of you. You saved not only the men and women of the department, you saved the city, quite frankly. I mean, you really did. We have completely turned around the department. And it was because of your leadership and partnership, because we couldn't have done it without you and with you. And when we brought in programs and concepts and ideas that were revolutionary, we're doing things now in the Los Angeles Fire Department that no other city in the country is doing. With programs like FireStat, with our new NPU, all these things that would have been impossible to even talk about with our labor partners. But you were right there, not only right there with us, we traveled together to go look at best practices in different cities and said, how can we do this? How can we look at consolidated CAD systems? How can we look at revamping this department? I mean, you've been there in the trenches. And I got to tell you, every man, woman, and child in the city of Los Angeles has to be grateful. They don't even know what you've done. And I know you've had a team behind you. And we're in good shoes with Tony behind you as well. But you have become family to me personally, somebody that I can call on and I can count on all the time. And we're moving in a different direction. You've left behind a legacy and changed the department and changed the culture, which isn't easy for anybody to do in a lifetime, yet alone what you've been able to accomplish. And you've done so with such skill in navigating those political waters and working with all the labor partners, but all of us and the public and the media and the men and women of the department. It's phenomenal. So I love you, brother. And I wish you only the best. And I want everybody to know forever that what you've done for this department will forever change and save lives. Forever. Few people could ever say that. The men and women that fight and protect and work and go into fires to protect us, you've protected them. It's extraordinary. So, God bless you. Thank you very much.
Mr. Koretz.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. Well, it's hard to follow what Mr. Englander just said. I think he said just about everything that I would want to say. But it's a sad day for me. I consider you a good friend. I consider you a great leader of this union. You've changed completely how we interact with UFLAC, and it was positive before. Now it's incredibly positive. I worked probably most closely with you on trying to get us up and hiring again and restaffing the department. You were a great ally, and rather than fighting us in the process, you established a truly collaborative process, which I think at the end of the day has made a massive difference in this city. I'm sorry to see you go. You've done an incredible job, but one of the great things you've done is, I think, set up a good bench in UFLAC. And so Tony and the people behind you, I think we can count on for great service as our union partners in the future. So I wish you tremendous success. I'm sorry you're leaving for our own selfish purposes because it's been so great working with you, but I know you'll do great in the years ahead. But we truly, I believe, and I've watched city government and the union for at least 40 years, have the best relationship we've ever had with UFLAC, and that's 1,000% because of you and your good work. So thank you for all of that.
Mr. Bonnet.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Mr. Harris Dawson, for bringing Frank in here for this tribute today. As others have said, this is going to be tough to see you leave your current post and move on. You have been an incredible leader, and you've been a friend, and you've just been a champion for everything that you do. You're an interesting guy. I remember the first time I met you when you took the helm, and I was still Bill's chief of staff, and I was sort of trying to size you up because you were the new leader. And who is this guy? And I know Bill liked you because he thought you were very attractive. So it was very important that I get to know you. He said he called me down from Chambers. There's a hot new guy at the head of UFLAC. Come on down here, Mikey. He is. And as I watched you over the subsequent couple months, I noticed so many things about you. You're tough. You're a tough guy, and you're a tough leader, but you're fair and you're kind. You are incredibly smart, but you're also incredibly humble. And you are, in your current position, the type of leader you are, you're very strong. You're a very strong leader, but you're an egoless leader. I have never seen you throw yourself around or build yourself up. Every time we have talked, it has never been about how great Frank Lima is. It's about how great the men and women of the Los Angeles Fire Department are. And you have absolutely exuded your concern and your empathy for and your advocacy for the people that you work for, your sisters and brothers in that department. And it's been absolutely palpable. And not just for the firefighters, but for the neighborhoods that you and everybody else in the department represents. One of our first conversations, and I've loved conspiring with you over the past few years and trying to cause trouble or make change, sometimes both at the same time. And one of our first conversations, because Frank, for those who don't know it, worked out of Fire Station 69 in Pacific Palisades, was how do we get Engine 69 back? And it became a mission for the two of us. It took us several fire chiefs to get the right fire chief to listen to us and agree to do it. Thank you, Chief Terrasas. It was a huge victory for Palisades and for my district to get that resource back. And I particularly enjoyed that you literally drove me in on the rig to come back into Palisades and bring it back. And it was a symbol for me of all the stuff that you've worked on and we've worked on as a council to restore the fire department. We need to restore it back to where it once was and even greater. And we have a long way to go in that. And, I'll give you my word, and I'm sure most of the folks around this horseshoe will give you their words, that they're going to work with Tony and the rest of the board, and they're going to make sure that we continue that fight and we continue to do it. I wish you luck in the next phase. You have been, for the city of Los Angeles, a model firefighter. You have been a model labor leader. You've been a model friend, and you've just been a model stand-up guy. Thank you.
Mr. Price.
Thank you, Mr. President. I, too, am appreciative that our colleague, Marquise Harris Dawson, has brought you in here today, Frank. We really are going to miss you. As everyone has said, you have just elevated, I think, the relationship and the sense of trust, certainly that I have with the department. And just appreciate the unique role you've played as leader of the union, reaching out in a way that was not so common before. And so you're going to be certainly sorely missed. We know that you're going to continue, though, to provide the kind of leadership and friendship that you've done with all of us around the Horseshoe. Keep up the good work, and we're proud of you and your new achievements.
Mr. Huizar.
Thank you, Mr. President. And we know this isn't a goodbye, because when you first mentioned to me the possibility of you moving on, the first thing when I told you that we're sorely going to miss you, you mentioned you're not going to go on. You're going to stay here and continue to do some work here because you care about this city, you care about this fire department, you care about your friends here. So thank you so much for that. You've been a great friend, but more importantly, I think you've been a great leader. Many people here already said what you did for UFLAC and the firefighters. You've exhibited characteristics where people want to follow you because you're fair, you're honest, you're direct. You've also created a team to work with. And you've also said we're all in this together. As our president said, you were willing to work with other bargaining units to make sure we had a deal that worked for everyone. And that shows that you cared not only about the fire department, but the well-being of this city. But more than anything, I'm going to lose the opportunity to be able to hang out with you, call you a friend, joke around, talk about growing up on the East Side, talk about all the things we had to go through and what that means for somebody growing up on the East Side, the type of character you build, having to live in those mean streets, as some of us may call them. But thank you so much for everything. I've learned a lot from you. I've learned a lot from a person that cares about their job, cares about their fellow human being, and more than anything, the importance of having that one-to-one contact and talking about some very important issues as we move this city forward. There's a lot to learn from you. Thank you for your work. We know this isn't goodbye. We'll still keep hanging out. We'll still keep working on the issues that are important to the city. And Tony, I know you have some big shoes to fill, but we've been watching you, and you're going to do a great job. I know you have your predecessor to have shown you a lot of things, and we look forward to continue working together. Thank you so much. Love you, buddy.
Mr. Rue.
Thank you, Mr. President. Frank, you know, from this Horseshoe, I've probably known you the least. It's only been about a little less than 3 years, but what an impression you've made. I want to join Marquise Harris Dawson in really thanking you, because early on when I first started my campaign and came onto the scene, you and the firefighters were one of the very few people who actually took me seriously and gave me that opportunity and gave me the courtesy to meet with me and take me seriously, and I really, really appreciate that. But, you know, I remember my first meeting with you, and as someone else recalled, it was tough. And the firefighters were tough. And I remember two things. First thing was, have you been to a fire station? Have you met any firefighters? And if you say yes, who? Give me names. And subsequently, every other time I meet with you, have you met your firefighters? Which is why no matter where I go, I see a firefighter, I make sure I recognize our first-line responders and thank them for their service, and ask the public to thank them, because you and your members and your colleagues are risking your lives every day. So that is ingrained in me. And secondarily, everything you do, every aspect that you talk about revolves around public safety. Public safety for all the constituents, all the residents in Los Angeles. And I know that's where all your decisions are made from, which I wholeheartedly support. I've learned a lot from you. I just really want to thank you for all your support, your friendship, and your dedication to public safety. So thank you, Frank. And congratulations to Tony. Tony Gambo, I look forward to working with you as well. But Frank, you're not going that far, right?
Mr. Krikorian.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Mr. President, Frank, my colleagues have appropriately spoken very eloquently about your leadership and all you've done for this department. I think it's worth taking a little step back to remember where we were when you took that office, because it was a pretty dark time. It was a dark time for our city and for the department. We were coming out of the worst budget crisis that the city had ever faced in any of our lifetimes. We were in a situation where companies had been shuttered throughout the city. We had firefighters with informational pickets on the streets in front of stations. We had visceral anger and seemingly intractable distrust between the firefighters and the administration at the time. It was a situation that few leaders would have willingly taken on. And yet, from day one, when you took over, you methodically started solving those problems. And a popular thing would have been to just be the angry guy and to just continue to press forward and add to that mistrust and add to that anger. But you made the decision not to do that. And I was struck by Chief Terras's story about his being in the building when you were cut in the hole, because it struck me that you knew that you had a unique role as the union president. You had a role different than the chief of the fire department. You had a role different than the members of this council or than the mayor. A unique and different role that required courage and required dedication. But it was a role that was part of a team. Just like when you respond to a call, each member of the department has a unique role, but it has to operate as a team. And you knew that, and you demonstrated that from day one. And the result was where we are now, restoring fire services, having this department be the #1 priority, as it should be, as we restore services. We're coming back, we're rebuilding this department to the place that it needs to be, thanks to your dedication and your leadership and your role in that equation. And I think, not only us who are your friends, but every citizen of the city of Los Angeles owes you a debt of gratitude for the lives that will be saved because of your work as president of this union. And it's really, truly nothing less than that. We've gone through in those years since you've been president, all of us have been with you through celebrations. We've been with you through funerals. We've been with you through chief after chief after chief, it seems like. But the result has been through your steadfast leadership that we are on the right path, to be sure now. And I can't thank you enough. I can't thank you enough for that. I can't thank you enough for your friendship. Like everybody else, I'm saddened as your friend that you won't be here as often to be with. But on the other hand, I'm also really excited that you're going to be taking the role that you're taking, because now more than ever in our country, at a time when we don't know what's ahead of us. We don't know what's ahead of us for the labor movement. We don't know what's ahead of us for people's commitment to government service and public safety, especially in Washington. But we know that we have one of the strongest champions we could possibly have, who's now ascending to the national scene, and I'm sure who isn't done yet in you. And I look forward to the positions that you're going to continue to take after this, because this country needs your leadership. So Frank, thank you very much for all you've done for us. And Tony, the baton is being passed, but I think the team is still running at full speed, and we're thrilled to have you take over this position and continue to build on the legacy that you've been handed. So thank you all very much. Frank, congratulations.
Mr. Cedillo.
Well, Mr. President, everything that can be said has been said. Not everybody has said it. Frank, as Mr. Krikorian said, your voice of leadership is more important today than it's ever been. Your record is well established. Your accomplishments have been noted. But your future is really what we are invested in, because your voice and the commitment to government and government service, the commitment to our communities is challenged today. Your vision for America, your vision for building communities is what is the central debate of this nation every day. And your leadership and your experience and your ability to articulate what works and how Los Angeles worked through crisis with your leadership as part of a team of leaders is more important today than it's ever been. And so I want to applaud you, and I want to encourage you to step into the challenge, into the battle. Know that we will be here cheering you on, supporting you. You have our full support. On a personal level, I thank you for your friendship. I thank you for our mutual friendship with our brother Ray. And Tony, you know, we got your back because you've got ours. And the city is greater, Frank, because of your service, and I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cedillo. Mr. O'Farrell.
Thank you, Mr. President. Frank, this is a bon voyage, but it is not a farewell. We know that the reason you're accepting a greater responsibility is because you've demonstrated such incredible capability. By virtue of you leaving the city of Los Angeles and the rank and file of the LAFD much better off than they were when you found them, demonstrates that you can handle a much greater responsibility. But at the same time, we know that you are a mentor to the men and women here in Los Angeles of the Los Angeles Fire Department. What I want to do is thank you for giving me a greater understanding of the complexities of the department's needs. And I'm reminded of that every time you and I sit down for a conversation. And I can't thank you enough for that relationship. It's one of my most valued relationships on the LA City Council, and I mean that in all sincerity. And Frank, Tony, I equally value your friendship and that of your colleagues, and I look forward to a long and constructive relationship. Frank, you were able to expertly convey the day-to-day realities and the concerns of our firefighters, and that is part of your legacy as well. Because of you, I think differently about the entire department, and I hope that that helps me and others craft better policy moving forward. You've also shown by example how to balance your tasks as the president of UFLAC with the natural tensions that are inherent between the LAFD's top brass and the rank and file. And I think you were able to accomplish all of this and communicate so expertly all of the components that you represent the interests of because of the quality of your character. And it's the quality of your character that makes your integrity beyond criticism. And so I stand with my colleagues and all of your friends here today and just tip my hat to you for the great work and the great legacy you've left all of us. You've given all of us plenty to work with in a very positive way, and that is the legacy that I will remember you for with your work here in Los Angeles. Thanks, Frank.
Mr. Blumenfield.
Hey, Frank. I walked in a little late because I had another meeting and coming in here, so I don't want to repeat what everyone has said, but I just wanted to add my voice to the chorus. We've had a great relationship. I value the relationship that we've had and going forward. The small solace knowing that you're moving forward into this national role, and to some extent you'll still be around, but you won't be here as much. But the small solace I get in that is that I know your national leadership is going to be good for our nation, and it's going to be good for us here in Los Angeles. As we've talked about, having someone who understands LA operating at that level is going to be good for all of us. So we thank you for taking that leadership role, and we're going to rely on you in that regard. And so thank you for all the great work you've done and for looking out for us as you move on to this future, and for just being a great advocate for community, for safety, and for being a good friend. Thank you, Frank.
Mr. Harris Dawson, back to you.
Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, the one and only Frank Lima.
Thank you, Councilman Marquise Harris Dawson, your great staff of Council District 8, and your great constituents of Council District 8, where me and Chief worked when I was a young rookie firefighter. I appreciate this, and I stand before you just incredibly humbled with a lot of humility here. Didn't expect this, but I could look at each and every person and council member in this horseshoe and their chief of staffs and their legislative deputies and their public safety deputies. I just see so many faces, so I can't even name a name or I would automatically leave somebody out. And I just thank all of you that said some kind words. I want to thank our Mayor Garcetti and his team. And it's incredible standing here, as many of you had mentioned, when I has been on this board for many years prior to becoming the president, but the president in the last 4 years, you guys all said it, we inherited some bad times. I mean, came in with a declining membership, morale was at an all-time low, the fire department had been decimated. We didn't lose one police officer in the city of Los Angeles. We felt like second-class citizens in the public safety world. And as the great Martin Luther King once said, the true character of a man is not during times of comfort and convenience, but it's during times of challenge and controversy. And that statement was the epitome of when I was able to start leading this union. You guys all mentioned the revolving door of fire chiefs, and I want to thank our fire administration and my good friend, Chief Terrazas, right here, and he's got many of his deputy chiefs with him. Don't agree with him all the time, but we sit down and we get it done fairly and always to what's best for the citizen out there, and that's what it's about. I have a union who has many stakeholders, women in the fire service, Los Bomberos Association, our Stentorian African-American firefighters, who are all here among us, and Brother Gerald Durant here, our next president of Stentorians, who we've worked together and helped with upward mobility throughout this fire department, and we have our labor leader, Rusty Hicks here, my good friend, and I'm going to continue to stay on the Federation COPE and Executive Board. So to all of the people standing behind me and our Executive Board, I really thank you. To get parity pay with the police was a big, heavy lift for us. And I would use a couple words for the city: hope and restoration, because as we on the fire department, in the union, in the administration, we saw an absolute wrecking ball close 7 ladder trucks in the city, 11 engine companies. Response times went up. It takes us longer to get to 911 calls. But with this body here, led by President Wesson and this great council, we have the pendulum of hope and restoration is going that way. And it's taken time, but we're all headed in the right direction. As far as the International Association of Firefighters, Los Angeles Fire Department, and United Firefighters of Los Angeles City, many of you know I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to be representing the 4 states of Arizona, New Mexico, California, and Hawaii, and we just organized the island of Guam. And I will be your voice here of influence of bringing back federal grant money to protect our firefighters, to reopen more companies, and I will have my handprints on that. Safety will be better. But I want to finish with our next president-elect, Tony Gamboa, my very good friend, and this executive board. Many labor organizations, they have cutthroats. When I left, our 10 members of our board, all 9 of them moved up, and we backfilled on the bottom. Just really incredible. So this board's going to keep it going. And last but not least, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention my family, my beautiful wife, Lisa, not here today. the credible support she's given me. The times I've missed with my kids, Nico, Sophia, Lucia, and Joey, 2 of them are off at college, and 2 of them are at home, and I've missed many events due to being with all the members here and doing what we do. So I humbly thank each and every one of you and every member that I represent on this fire department and the entire city of LA. LA strong, Union strong. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you so very much.
So on behalf of every elected official in the city of Los Angeles, we present to you Frank Lima this commendation. Everybody give him a big round of applause. Thank you.
Okay, let's get a quick vote on item 9 for reconsideration. On item 9, let us open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Okay, so we'll just hold that item for a moment.
And Mr. President, in the meantime, the Department of Building and Safety recommends that items 1B, H, G, and Q be continued to January 10, sir.
Okay, without objection, that'll be the order. We can just wait 2 seconds, Mr. Clerk. Let's go to item 7. We're going to vote on item 7 quickly. Madam Clerk, please open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes, 1 no.
Mr. Walsh? John Walsh? 2/16/19/2023.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org, tweeting at Hollywood Dems. Number 2. This concerns another alcoholic beverage license. Every time you vote another alcoholic beverage license and there's a hit and run, the blood is on your hands, Mr. Rue. If it's not Karina, it doesn't matter. Don't give a damn about blacks and Hispanics? I'm telling you right now, we have too many liquor licenses in this city. And the Times doesn't give a shit. Because so number 2, no liquor license. No more liquor license, a freeze. Ms. Steinke, Employee Relation Board, she deserves the job. She has no criminal record, no child molesting criminal record as someone else you put in here. Temporary preferential parking district. You know how you get a temporary parking district? If you're not white, you better be related to one of the blacks or the Hispanics, because no one else gets a temporary preferential parking district. Nobody else gets one. And here's a bunch of them that are going to be going through. Near the Expo line, Crash Corrigan. I mean, they've had more crashes per mile on the Expo line than on any similar light rail line. But the Times doesn't cover that, because every time they build a line to downtown, it increases their real estate value, the Tribune's real estate value. Number 20, authorizing a substitute authority for one senior project manager for the fire department to administer its youth programs. Again, we have a great fire department compared to those scumbags up in Oakland. And the only reason it didn't make a big story was because everybody they killed was white. You can stay on
the subject, Mr. Walsh.
The subject is the fire department and the senior project. See, even when I praise, he doesn't want me talking. Even when
Just
I
stay
praise
on the subject, Mr. Walsh. I like you talking.
Number 20, and then number 23. This is going to be the craziness of the New Year's Eve event. You dodged a bullet last year. One of these years is going to be a gang, and the whole downtown is going to fall apart. Is going to go up in flames. We don't need tens or hundreds of thousands of people downtown. Now, as far as my
let's give him his 1 minute, Mr. Clerk.
I'm telling you, number one, we're going to have an election. We're going to have an election to replace Javier Becerra. There is only Mr. Cedillo didn't have the guts to stand up to Villaraigosa, so he turned tail. He's not going to run. He doesn't have the balls to run. We have Jimmy Gomez, who's taking on the entire Hispanic establishment. Who is the heavy favorite now? The heavy favorite, of course, is the other candidate. He is the favorite, maybe, but he's sure. John Perez sure is heavy. Jimmy Gomez. And why should you vote for Jimmy Gomez, especially if you're a white liberal, especially if you want to burn these people? He is the number one Hispanic person in California in favor of fighting climate change. Go check it out. Put in climate change in Jimmy Gomez. He will be our next Hollywood congressman. HollywoodHighlands.org.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Mr. Koretz. And while Mr. Koretz is making his way, members, let's vote on item 23. Let's, on 23, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Koretz. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Mr. President, and good morning, colleagues. Today we honor 850,000 Jewish refugees from Arab countries and Iran, a special day where we celebrate their abilities to overcome incredible adversity. Approximately 12% of Jews in the Los Angeles area identify as Sephardic or Mizrahi Jews. Many of them fled North Africa and the Middle East between 1948 and 1967. Some lived as penniless refugees for years. From Baghdad to Cairo, from Tripoli to Beirut, these Jewish communities have endured incredible hardships. And although they were stripped of everything, they kept their dignity, held their heads high, and moved on, and have contributed immensely to our culture and the economy of our community. This morning, we're joined by some of those individuals in our audience who have faced adversity and persecution, including members from the community of two synagogues in Westwood. The Sephardic Temple, which was founded in 1917 and has over 1,200 members, and Kahal Joseph Synagogue, founded in 1920, has a vibrant Sephardic community of 450 families. These incredible contributions are beyond measure, and today as I look around, I see a number of Jews who were expelled from North Africa and the Middle East, some of whom lived as refugees for years. I'm reminded that all of you have one thing in common. No matter what challenges you and your families faced, you moved on and refused to live life as victims. Your strength and perseverance should not be taken for granted, as it can and should inspire other refugees. Also, many of you can help other Angelenos understand and strengthen their support for Israel. Few in North America know that over half of Israel's Jewish population descended from Jewish refugees from Iran and Arab countries. We have several organizations here today who are leading efforts locally and nationally to build and advocate for the inclusion of Sephardic and Mizrahi community into mainstream Jewish and civic life. And I'd like to welcome JIMENA, which is Jews Indigenous to the Middle East and North Africa, an organization at the forefront of the international effort to address losses and heritage of Jewish refugees from North Africa and the Middle East. 30 years after, whose mission is to promote the participation and leadership of Iranian American Jews in American political, civic, and cultural life and Jewish life. Sephardic Temple, Kahal Joseph Congregation, the Israeli American Council, or IAC, the Iranian American Jewish Federation, the Milstein Foundation, and Eyewitness Refugees from Iraq and Libya, Penina Joseph Mechnagi and Joseph Samuels, who will share a few words with us today. Now, first, I'd like to introduce Farah Shamolian, JIMENA's Los Angeles Program Director, to say a few words.
Well, let's welcome her. Let's give her a round of applause. Welcome, 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 and thank you for the work that you're doing.
Thank you so much for having me here today. It really, truly is an honor. My name is Farah Shamolian, and I am a Los Angeles Program Director of JIMENA, Jews Indigenous to the Middle East and North Africa. It's actually my first time here, and it's beautiful. Thank you so much for having me. It's truly an honor. A very special thank you to all the council members here today. Nice to formally see you all in one room. And I want to specifically thank Councilmember Paul Koretz for being such a strong force in our community and being a voice to the voiceless. I also wanted to welcome all of our community members here today. It's so nice to have us all here to celebrate such a momentous occasion for Sephardic and Mizrahi Jewish history. In the early 20th century, under the heavy weight of anti-Jewish governments and policy, nearly 1 million Jews from the Middle East and North Africa had their property confiscated, basic human rights stripped, and were systematically persecuted and victimized. Ultimately, these Jews were forced to flee their homes and surrender their nationalities, becoming the forgotten refugees of the Middle East and North Africa. UN House Resolution 242 stated that Jews fleeing from Arab countries were bona fide refugees. Yet the international political community, the media, and North American academic human rights and mainstream Jewish institutions have continuously ignored the Mizrahi and Sephardic refugee experience. JIMENA was established in 2002 to make our story and the story of our parents and grandparents known. On June 23, 2014, the Israeli government adopted a new law which designates November 30th, which was a few weeks ago, as the National Day of Commemoration for the nearly 1 million Jewish refugees from Arab countries and Iran in the 20th century. So within the past few weeks and months, commemoration programs have been happening all around the world to honor the heritage and history of Mizrahi Jews here in North America and in North America. So in North America, JIMENA has established the Mizrahi Remembrance Month initiative, now in its third year, which entails a range of educational and cultural programs at Jewish day schools, universities, synagogues, community centers, and civic spaces throughout North America. I am proud to work for JIMENA, an organization that is diligently working to preserve and share this important history, not just in November, but all year round. I am here today to preserve and share the history and culture of these Jewish communities, as well as to advocate for the universal recognition of this overlooked piece of history. It is my hope that together we can keep this important story vibrant and alive. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And now I'd like to introduce Joseph Samuels, an Iraqi-born member of Jimenez Speakers Bureau, to say a few words.
Welcome, sir.
It's a great honor for me to share with you today the untold story of Jews from Arab land. Thank you for inviting me, and thanks Councilman Paul Koretz for sponsoring this meeting. I was born in Taht al-Takia, in the Jewish old quarter city in Baghdad in 1930. In 3 weeks, I'll be 86. My mother tongue is Arabic. My Arabic name is Yusuf. Baghdad was my home, and Iraq was my country. Here's a photo of my family that in Baghdad when I was living. Jewish roots in Iraq goes back over 26 centuries. Biblical prophet Ezekiel, Ezra, Jonah, and Nehemiah are all buried in Iraq. By mid-20th century, 1 in every 4 citizens in Baghdad was Jewish. Then things changed. On June 1, 1941, Muslim mobs went on a rampage, looting and burning Jewish homes and businesses. They murdered Jewish men and children, raped women and girls, and murdered them. The violence became known as Farhud. Here's a photo of the mass grave of the victims. There were no arrests, prosecution, or convictions. Jews would not file complaint against Muslims without fear of retaliation and the fear for their lives. I was 10 and a half years old. There was nowhere to go, nowhere to hide, and no country to take us. This violence became known as Farhud. Then on May 15, 1948, Jews felt a beam of hope, safety, and freedom and dignity. Israel was born. After 2,000 years, once again, Jews had a country, a sanctuary from persecution and death. On the same day, 5 Arab countries declared war on the newly born Israel. They failed. The Iraqi government turned against the Jewish population. Summary arrests, torture, and public execution followed. Every Jew was a suspect. At the age of 19, I was smuggled out of Iraq to Iran and then to Israel. I became a homeless, penniless refugee. I stood in line for a free meal and slept in a tent. Here's a photo of the tent city of the refugees. In 1950, the Iraqi government allowed Jews to leave Iraq. Most of the 135,000 Jews living then left. They were allowed to leave with only 1 suitcase. They lost their homes, businesses, and their citizenship was revoked. Those who stayed faced systematic persecution, arrest, torture, and public execution. Most of them were smuggled out. American forces rescued the final few after the war of 2003. Presently, there are no Jews left in Iraq. The Iraqi Jewish exodus was repeated in other Arab lands. The 850,000 Jews were living in the Middle East and North Africa. At present, only 3,000 left. The many Arab wars against Israel brought these Arab Jews economic deprivation, harassment, discrimination, and expulsion. About 600,000 of them moved to settled in Israel. The rest found refuge in Europe, Canada, the US, and other places. After making my way through Iran, Israel, and Canada, and after losing my home in Baghdad, I found a home that I love. My family and I are grateful and privileged to be living in one of the greatest nations under God's green earth, where we experience freedom, justice, and peace, the United States of America. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Joseph, for sharing your story with us. Now I'd like to introduce Chanel Melamed, Executive Director of 30 Years After, to say a few words.
Thank you so much. Hi. Thank you. Good morning, council members. Thank you for having me. And a huge thank you to Councilmember Koretz for our continued partnership on a variety of very important issues. My name is Chanel Melamed, and I'm the Executive Director of 30 Years After. It is an honor for me to address you guys today on behalf of young professional Iranian-American Jews, many of us either the children of Iranian Jewish refugees or refugees ourselves who arrived in Los Angeles at a very young age. For those of you who aren't familiar, 30 Years After is a Los Angeles-based nonprofit with the mission of promoting the participation and leadership of Iranian-American Jewish young professionals in American political and civic life. It was just under a decade ago, the founders of our organization decided that the time had arrived for us to give back to the society that took us in and to the institutions that settled us. It was time for us to formally play a role in the city that we now called home. 30 Years After's programming, including biennial conferences and a leadership and training program, is all focused on cultivating the next generation of civically aware influencers who are dedicated to playing a positive role in the greater story of Los Angeles. We're proud to share that our organization has engaged over 12,000 individuals to date. For many of us, growing up on our parents' stories of uncertainty, exile, fear, and ultimately resilience, we learned the importance of embracing our collective past as we journey forward to shape the future. Today, 30 Years After harnesses the communal history and values of Iranian Jews as we work with major players like you to create a more perfect Los Angeles for us all. We are fierce Angelinos with a harrowing heritage, who look forward to partnering with each of you as more and more first and second generation Iranian American Jews assume the privilege and responsibility of leadership. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you, Chanel, and for the great work that 30 Years After does. And thank you to all our guests here. And now I'd like to present a certificate of recognition, which is going to be accepted by Mrs. Gila Milstein on behalf of the 850,000 Jewish refugees from the Middle East, North Africa, and Iran. Gila was born in Morocco and immigrated to Israel when she was 6 years old, and she moved to Los Angeles with her husband and family in 1983. And today she's an active community leader and philanthropist. And so thank you, Gila, for all the good work that you do and for accepting this certificate.
Thank you, City Council Paul Koretz and Los Angeles City Council members for hosting this event. I want to thank everyone in this room for taking the time to attend and be here. And I want to thank Jimena for putting together this event and inviting me to participate. I'm humbled and honored to accept this certificate on behalf of the Jewish refugees from Arab countries. And as you heard, I was born in Morocco, and I was a little girl. We had to leave everything. We were forced to leave everything behind. The Jewish refugees from Arab countries have been ignored for far too long. And this recognition means so much to all of us. Events like this brings light to our untold stories. Thank you again for recognizing Jimena and for advancing the cause of truth and justice in our world.
And if I could just add that this story is important and it can't be forgotten. Nearly 1 million Jews experienced refuge in Arab countries, and the city of Los Angeles recognizes this unique population and honors them for their perseverance and ability to move forward in the face of injustice. So now it's my pleasure to present this certificate to Jimena and to Gila.
Again, thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Koretz. Is Mr. Murphy? Sean, if you could come up as the crowd goes into the back. Mr. Clerk, we have Mr. Murphy.
Yes, good morning, City Council. What do I have? What agendas do I have?
Mr. Murphy, you have item 1, every item on item 1.
Yes, item 1 is an item I support. General public comment. A lot of people are running for mayor. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. If we could have Mr. Previn. Okay, Mr. Previn, here are the items that you can speak to. Items 1, 2, 9, 13, 15, 16, 18, 19, 20, and 21.
Thank you, sir. It is Eric Previn, and I appreciate the opportunity. That is simply too many. I'm not going to be able to do it. But item number 1 is your usual liens on properties. And I just would draw to your attention today, sir, since you are the gobernador of CD7 temporarily and improperly, that 5 separate liens are from that district, which currently has, as you know, no representation. Mr. Marquis Harris Dawson is sitting next to a vacant seat. The city, by charter, is supposed to appoint a constituent representative to vote on behalf of the 250,000 residents. So that would be a good thing to focus on soon, sir. Item number 2, here again in CD7. So we are rolling with business with no representation. We are violating the simple premise of taxation with representation, not without. But here it is simply for a liquor license for Target. So we are in safe territory for the City Council of Los Angeles, who will hand out a liquor license to virtually anybody while bellyaching on about Vision Zero, which is a good idea, and people being hit by drunk drivers all over the place. So I don't know. Target makes a very good proposition when they put together a liquor cabinet. You can get a good deal. I have purchased liquor there myself at other Targets where it is permissible. So thank you for doing what you do best. Sir, item number 5, we've got Craig Lawson is jumping in, Ruse District. It's a McCadden Place little development. Looks good, actually. It's a sort of a cascading set of 3 buildings. And I will tell you, These guys are putting up the LGBTQ moniker in a very nice way that is going to blow away any opposition to such a project. And I don't think there is any opposition. I may be wrong. Maybe there are some people who are opposed. But thank you for doing that, sir. Item number 16, sir, is the Employee Relations Board is adjusting. The Ethics Commission is approved. We've got 2 men and 2 women serving at the moment, which is an interesting balance. And then I think 1 is vacant. But here in this hall, as Martinez will remind us, there's only 1 woman serving among the 15. So we're hoping to change that as we go forward. And at the LA Fire Department, we are especially hoping, thanks that Mr. Lima is now retiring, and he has left the feeling that we're going to add more and more women to the fire force. It's great news, and thank you. It's worth noting that the Board of Supervisors has 4 women and 1 Mark Ridley Thomas. Nice to see Sebastian down here for Mr. Lima. By the way, Mr. Lima, it's worth noting, what we were saying, you got to meet Frank Lima. All council members have to meet Frank Lima.
What item are you on, Mr. President?
I'm on the item of giving money to council members from UFLAC, but I can get back to the agenda, sure. Item number 18 is a Jordan Downs project. There was a controversial LA Times editorial about that. I think this seems like a pretty good idea. They're going to build the property adjacent from the existing property so that people who would ordinarily be displaced will only be displaced when it's time to move into the new place. So if they live up to their word, that seems reasonable. So thank you for that. Item number 21, here we have a special gift from Uber. They are providing the Wi-Fi for a bunch of old computers that have been donated previously. Thank you, I think. There's also something about hotspots, which directs my attention to the LA dot item at 19.
Could you give him his minute for general public comment, Mr. Clerk? Yes, sir.
That's it? Okay, fine. Well, I will say something about the Department of Transportation as Mr. Bonin gets up and shuffles off nervously. This is a group that is engaged in, they handle the Parking Citation Bureau, the Parking Violations Bureau. And Xerox, our trusted partners and lobbyists through Englander, Knabe, and Allen, in September, Mr. Bonin signed a change order with Salida Reynolds to add a vehicle. I can't remember the name of it, but it's like the scofflaw. And it has a monitor on the top, something like a fuzzbuster, that scans every single license plate as it drives by. It is chilling because what they try to do, what they're actively pursuing, even as the mayor is saying, we need to be better, what they're pursuing is seizing people's vehicles for the police garage group that Mr. Englander's colleague Eric Rose is the leader of. And they're going after Angelinos who have been underwater on these horrible citations that double, and then more than double, and the Xerox is incentivized. There was a big legal case in November on
Thank you, Mr. President.
Well, thank you, sir. Have a great day.
Thank you. Okay, now we're going to vote on items 1 and 2. On those items, can we open the roll? Yes,
Mr. President, pardon me, there is an amending motion that has been submitted for item 1W. You could certainly vote on 1W as amended, as well as the remainder of the items for item 1 as submitted, sir.
Let me recognize the city attorney at this time.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just for the record, we have posted and circulated before public comment started amending motions on items 1, 9, 13, and 15.
Okay, so now let's go back to voting on the items. Let's open the roll. 1 and 2. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Thank you. Let's take up items 9 and 13 and 11. Also 9, 11, and 13. No. In fact, let's just go 9 and 13. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote. Okay.
14 ayes.
Go right ahead.
Mr. President, we also circulated a revised city attorney confidential report. Would you like to note and file that one?
Thank you.
Would you like to note and file the revised report?
Yes, I would. Okay, now let's vote on items 16, 19, 20, 21, and 23. Let us open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Mr. Koretz? Mr. Koretz, you want to take up your item? I know we have a lot of people that are here today. So before we determine how to proceed, would you like to explain the amendment?
Sure.
And this is it item 15?
Well, thank you, Mr. President. The issue of mansionization is an issue of deciding what we deem important. And in our roles, we have to strike a balance between providing for the needs of the future while maintaining the aspects, character, and neighborhood sensibility that has helped us make Los Angeles a great city. For the past 2 years, I've done my best to confront the issue of oversized homes. With the help of Council President Wesson and the Planning Department, we've been able to enact ICOs while making the needed changes to the baseline mansionization and baseline hillside ordinances. And we're finally coming to the end of this long fight. However, it's important to do this correctly now. And I've joined with Councilmember Wesson and Councilmember Ryu in introducing a motion to make the needed corrections today. We must have a consistent FAR for our R1 neighborhoods of 45%. We must ensure encroachment planes that create the intended effect of articulation. We must protect our hillsides. We must incentivize placing garages in the rear, and the motion today does those things. And while we have many tools in the planning toolbox, we all know that time is our biggest hurdle, and the time is now. So I ask colleagues that you join Councilmember Ryu, Council President Wesson, and myself in doing what's possible and what's right and doing it now. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Koretz. I want to recognize Mr. Ryu.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. President, and thank you, Councilmember Koretz, for your leadership on this issue. And protecting our residential neighborhoods has been a top priority over the last 18 months. By approving the baseline mansionization ordinance and the baseline hillside ordinance, our city and its residents will have the necessary tools to fight out-of-scale development. Over the last several years, bubble field redevelopment has pushed up housing prices due to out-of-scale homes. These larger properties provide no additional housing to our city, but do price out our long-term residents. We have lost hundreds of homes, displaced middle-class families, and changed the historic character of our neighborhoods. Additionally, out-of-scale and out-of-character development has also pitted neighbor against neighbor, creating toxic community disputes. I completely understand the importance of building new homes that allow for our families to grow. As I've said before, my grandmother was a critical part in my upbringing, and that's because she lived with me and my parents. However, it is very pivotal that we prevent loopholes that allow for developers and real estate speculators to take advantage of our city's land use laws. By doing so, we can protect the unique neighborhoods that make Los Angeles so special and safeguard our residents from being displaced. Upon entering office, I introduced a motion to create an interim control ordinance for Sherman Oaks, Brookside, and Sycamore Square. And prior to my election, the council approved those same protections for 15 other unique residential neighborhoods. Now, the baseline mansionization ordinance and the baseline hillside ordinance today will provide the long-term solutions needed for our communities to grow responsibly. Additionally, the BMO and the BHO will protect endangered wildlife that live throughout our hillsides, preserve the character and landscape of our historic communities, create fair rules for every applicant looking to build or expand their home, and enhance the public safety of thousands of hillside residents. I especially want to thank the Planning Department for their tireless work. I would also like to thank all the residents and community groups who offered constructive feedback which improved these important ordinances. I urge all my colleagues to vote in support of this item number 15, and its Amendment 15A, so our residential communities gain the protections that they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ryu. Mr. Huizar.
Thank you, Mr. President. And colleagues, we heard this item couple of weeks ago or a week ago, and what we did is we heard a draft ordinance, an update to the baseline mansionization and baseline hillside ordinances to address the out-of-scale development that we've seen in some neighborhoods. And as many of you recall, the city actually adopted the original ordinance back in 2008, but we saw that that had many loopholes. And thankfully, through the hard work of interested council members like Koretz, Bonin, and Ryu, and others, they worked with the planning department to go throughout the city to get input on how do we close those loopholes. What we got before us today does that as well, and the amendment proposed by Mr. Koretz today, I think, will further tighten that. We hope that with today's direction, we will close the loopholes, but I ask that we all keep monitoring this, because as we know, as we put things in practice, things that were unintended seem to pop up, and we'd love to hear this back in Plum as we continue to implement it. For now, the process is we hopefully can address this, move it forward to the city attorney to draft an ordinance, and then we will come back to Plum to hear one final time and in city council. But I think this is a very good move to take back our neighborhoods, save the character of our neighborhoods throughout the city, and I look forward to getting that ordinance from the city attorney's office back in Plum shortly so that we can move forward and close these loopholes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Huizar, and I do want to thank you for your leadership on this issue. Indicate that it has been an honor and a pleasure to work with Mr. Koretz and Mr. Ryu. I'd like to thank you, Mr. Koretz, for your leadership on this item, and indicate that it was my pleasure to join with you and David as we amended this a motion back to reflect what was recommended by the Planning Commission. So with that said, I would like to recognize Mr. Koretz again, and then Mr. Koretz, we'll hear from the folk that are here.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to acknowledge the fact that there are many folks here in support of these amendments. I don't think all of them will feel compelled to speak, but I'd like to give them a chance to stand up and be recognized.
So you all are in support of the amendments that we did today? All right, let me hear. Wonderful. Okay, so is it your rowdy crowd, Mr. Koretz? Okay, whoa. Why don't we, I think that's a fair question. You want to bring up, do we have a representative that can walk through the actual amendments, Mr. Koretz? I think that wouldn't be a bad idea. Do we have someone from the department?
Perhaps we can ask planning to do that. They'd probably do it a little better than I if there
Where are they
are
here?
folks present that can do it.
Are they here?
If
I see them.
If not, I'll give it a shot, but I think they...
No, they're here. Why don't we
probably
have
do it better.
them? Because we would like to move on this and vote on this while I have all of these members here. So we're going to listen to this, and we'll go into public comment. Yes, sir. Why don't you just walk us through?
Good morning. My name is Tom Rothman from the Planning Department. And actually, Phyllis, did you have that motion? Yes. I don't feel I need to go through the entire ordinance. I just want to go through what the motion is. Okay, so
Yes.
I believe that what this motion is asking is that the FAR for lots that are zoned R1 shall be 0.45. That's a 45%, regardless of size. And in the hillside areas, the R1 FAR shall also be 0.45, but it will decrease based upon an increasing slope. We're going to return to the first 400 square feet of a rear detached garage be exempted from the size of a house, or the first 200 square feet of a front garage be exempted. We're going to return to a maximum grading be at 1,000 cubic yards for all hillside lots zoned R1. The guaranteed minimum floor area for a hillside home shall be 800 square feet. And lastly, the R1 encroachment plane, where the step backs begin, right now is at 22 feet, will go to 20 feet.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I'm going to call up, we have cards. If you are supportive and don't need to speak, you don't have to come up. I'm optimistic that Mr. Koretz has the votes for this, but I want to call up Denny Moser, Tamara Bergman, Stephen Luffman, Keith Nakata. Come up when I call you. And again, like I said, you go right ahead, identify yourself.
Good morning. I'm Deanie Mosser, proudly from CD10. I want to thank you for addressing the BMO today, and please restore the 45% FAR for R1 zones. However, many of us want the front-facing attached garages to be counted as floor space. No exemptions for them. Thank you very much.
I hear you. Thank you for coming down. We'll keep doing this till we get this right.
Thank you,
Next.
sir.
Okay. Come on.
Thank you, council members. I want to thank everyone for taking such decisive action on this, decisive action. My name is Stephen Luffman. I'm a member of Mid-City West Community Council, though I'm not speaking on their behalf today. I also agree that the front garages should be counted as floor space. Thank you.
Next.
Hi, good morning, Keith Nakata. I'd like to thank Councilman Koretz for all his hard work on this. I support what is before you today, except for the 200 square foot garage exemption. There should be no exemption on the front-facing garages. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So if I could get Barry Johnson, Lorraine Kirsten, Dean Perton, Dr. Anna Serrano, Simon. Yes, sir.
Barry Johnson. I'm here for the Studio City Neighborhood Council. We support today's amendments, but we still ask for a not counting the 400 square feet, counting the 400 square feet for attached front garages. You know, if you took a vote of the 600,000 single-family homes in Los Angeles, I would bet my life on the fact that 80% or more would be for this. And I'm glad that you are, as a body, you are finally giving the weight due to these 600,000 single-family households versus a couple of hundred spec builders. And in my neighborhood, the spec builders have even said they're making just as much money now on building a slightly smaller house as they did before. So it's what you can sell it for. It's not the size. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hi, my name is Lorraine Kirsten. I live in Council District 10. I urge the council to restore the .45 FAR and to allow no exemption for attached garages. We live in an urban neighborhood, and I believe that each neighbor should be very considerate of their surrounding neighbors. One household often has up to 6 neighbors, and that is very important. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Dean Perton. I'm an architect and resident of Faircrest Heights, CD10, where I've lived for nearly 30 years. Having watched the degradation of our residential neighborhoods in recent years, changes were required to stop further erosion of these neighborhoods. The BMO, as written, took important steps in this direction. The item under consideration before the Council today undermines much of this progress. Accordingly, I speak today against the items, specifically C and D, the restoration of the garage exemption and restoration of the higher FAR, work against the reasonable growth limits previously drafted. I urge the Council to reject these specific recommendations. Thank you.
Next.
Thank you for hearing us today, and I am in favor of the 45% floor area ratio, and also I am against not counting an attached garage. I want it counted as floor space. And just a quick note that research of out-of-scale building impedes healthy economy, it degrades, it burdens the environment, strains local infrastructure, and harms the quality of life. And we really need our quality of life back. Thank you.
Next, please.
Hi, my name is Simon Toporowski. I'm from Council District 10, and I agree with the last speaker. I'm in favor of restoring the 0.45 FAR and the R1 zones, and wish to count front-facing attached garages as floor space. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so now we have a community impact statement. You guys can stay there, but I want to get Tracy to come back. Tracy, to come on down. Considine, where are you? And, well, I want you to come and sit. Come in. Yeah. We're going to let you back out. We're going to let you in and we're going to let you back out. I want you to sit right there. This neighborhood council took the time. They did a community impact statement. When that occurs, that because it is the neighborhood councils, they are afforded more time. So why don't you just introduce yourself, and begin.
I'm Tracy Considine, the Land Use Chair for Pico Neighborhood Council. Mansionization is an issue that actually really mobilized our neighborhood associations and our neighborhood council, and we've submitted 6 community impact statements. I will not take your time by reading them. In summary, I think based on what our community impact statements have said, we very much appreciate the amendments that have been proposed today and would want to reiterate our support for restoring the 0.45 floor area ratio, counting front-facing attached garages as floor space, and starting the encroachment plane in R1 zones at 20 feet. Thank you so much, Council President Wesson, for listening to our communities, and to Council Members Koretz and Ryu for your leadership. Thank you.
And thank you for sharing your concerns with me in my office. I appreciate each and every one of you that came down from the district that I'm fortunate enough to represent. So if I could get Miss Jackson, Mickey Jackson, Miriam Dodge, Robin Greenberg. Is Mary Louise Morgan here? Mary Louise? My first boss in government is here. That's a true story. Yes, Ms. Howard. Jackson, I'm sorry.
That's okay. We're all, I don't know if we're all friends, but I kind of like to think of it that way. I wanted to talk a little bit more about mansionization, and I wanted to say that this is a good first step, but as you indicated, we're going to have to keep trying to do this. And I think one of the things we need to think about is beyond R1. We need to think about R2. We have a historic, unique LA type of housing, duplexes and courtyards, triplexes, that are being destroyed for mansions all over the city. We're losing this important resource, and I think it should be very, very hard to destroy rent-stabilized housing of any kind, and I think we need to protect it from everything, from mansionization and anything that destroys it. People should have to go through more hoops if they're going to take away rent-stabilized housing. And if they do and they have to replace it, it should be replaced at the same rent it was taken away at.
Thank you. If I could have the next speaker.
I'm Marian Dodge, Chair of the Hillside Federation. I'd like to thank Council Members Koretz and Ryu, and especially Council President Wesson for their leadership in moving forward these amendments. However, it's highly unusual to speak before Council when we haven't seen the proposed ordinance posted online before, so thank you, Phyllis and Tom, for making your clarifications. The Federation appreciates reducing grading to 1,000 cubic yards, reducing the FAR to 0.45, reducing the guaranteed minimum to 800 square feet, including institutions in the BHO, including basements in the FRA. But attached garages should count in the FRA. These amendments will help to preserve the character of individual neighborhoods in Los Angeles. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next speaker.
My name is Robin Greenberg. I'm president of the Bel Air Beverly Crest Neighborhood Council. In my hand is a CIS that we have previously submitted. That would allow us 5 minutes.
Come
as
on
I
forward.
understand
Come
it.
forward. Come on. I did not. No one. Just come around. Sergeants, help her get through. Please sit down. State your name again and the organization you represent.
My name is Robin Greenberg. I'm president of the Bel Air Beverly Crest Neighborhood Council. We have previously submitted a CIS on this topic. We want to thank our council members Koretz and Rue for always standing next to us as we support the issues of the hillside. They are accessible to us. These two gentlemen are always at the other end of a phone call or a request for an in-house meeting with them. We want to thank them. Now, with regard to this issue, I have brought with me some points created by Don Lowe's, a member of our board, and Robert Schlesinger. They are also going to speak. What we would like to look at is the diversity of our neighborhoods. The general plan, the community plan, the specific plans are the vehicles for our city to come together. We have great diversity. There are now over 90 neighborhood councils capable of organizing and creating input before this ordinance is enacted. We are grateful for the ability to speak before you. Absolutely needed are overlaid districts. Also, the building requirement of $50,000 must be increased to the cost of actual repairs to the city right-of-ways and imputed neighborhood adverse impacts. The mitigated negative declarations of developers are inadequate and not enforced. Vehicles of over 6,000 pounds should be charged a license fee designated to supplement the costs parallel to the more appropriate construction bond. Trip fees should supplement those to provide for correlated infrastructure replacement. DOT and building and safety departments should always know what vehicles are moving and under what permits. Haul routes need input and direction from street services before any determination. All properties along a proposed haul route must be noticed in advance for an opportunity to address the decision-making body. The adverse impact of all activity needs to be primary consideration. And the last thing, we are in favor of restoring .45 FAR. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, let's let her get back, and then if I could get Mary Louise. And folks, I really was not joking. The very first job I ever got in government was for the County of Los Angeles in a section called Loss Prevention. And this young lady here was my first boss and trained me. So this is Mary Louise Morgan. Still going strong.
Trying to, sir. Trying to. I want to thank you very much for this meeting, and I want to thank you for your leadership and Paul Koretz's leadership in tackling this baseline mansionization issue. I would echo the requests that have been made here today. That is, I also support the 45% FAR, and I wish to see the floor area in the space in garages, attached garages, included in the allowable space.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You were a class act then, you're a class act now. You see how well dressed she is? She taught me how to dress. Oh no, 1978, I'm having a flashback here, folks. Real story, no exaggeration. So, do we have Alex Kondrak, Robert Schlesinger, Alex Isbicki, Frank Rosato?
Hi, my name is Alex Kondracki, and I'm here from the Los Feliz Improvement Association. Normally, we get notice of ordinances 3 days ahead of time. We get to see a draft of the ordinance on the website, but this time the draft wasn't up. we find that highly irregular and inappropriate. We really need to see what's going on ahead of time. In addition, people all over the city are alarmed at mansionization, and you've done a lot to start to address that. But I'd like to say that the front-facing garages need to count as floor space, and there should be no exemptions for that. Thank you.
Honorable members of the City Council, I'm going to cut short what I'm going to say because somebody ahead of me and somebody after me is going to cover it, so no point in me doing it. There's one thing I would like to do, though. I would like to thank Councilmember Koretz and Councilmember Ryu for sticking by us, being at the other end of the telephone, as Robin says, many, many times. I am in favor of the BHO. There are some basic problems with it, but we'll resolve that in another day. I am a member of the Benedict Canyon Association, the Bel Air Beverly Crest Neighborhood Council, and I'm the Planning and Land Use Committee Chair. Thank you very much.
And can I get your name again, sir, please? Your name again?
Schlesinger.
Oh, got it. Okay, yes.
Schlesinger.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you, Robert. Mr. Schlesinger.
Good morning. My name is Alex Zizbicki. First of all, I want to echo the sentiment. Thank you, Councilman Ryu and Councilman Koretz, for taking the leadership position here. I am from Council District 2, and I'm a member of Save Colorado Canyon, which has 1,100 plus members dedicated to the preservation of the hillsides and its integrity. We do support the amendments being brought forth here, but we would also like to bring up the fact that we support the Plum recommendation that the ordinance clarify that conditionally permitted uses are indeed subject to the provisions of the BMO and BHO. And we request that the ordinance language be stricken, removing the clause except for conditionally permitted uses enumerated in section 12.24. Wherever it appears in the code amendment language, for example, sections 2, 5, 8, 11,
Great. Thank you.
and 19.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Good morning. My name is Frank Rosato from Council District 4. I want to thank Councilmember Ryu and Councilmember Koretz and Council President Wesson for your support. I agree with all of the amendments that have been put forth with the exception of counting the square footage for attached garages, no exemptions for those. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, so Tammy Rosada, Shelley Wagger, Amy Galadet.
Hi, I'm Tammy Alakil. I'm actually just agreeing with what you've heard so far about, I live in Council District 10, and thank you so much for hearing our comments today, and I would like to voice my support for the amendments and to restore the .45 FAR in the R1 zones and to count front-facing attached garages as floor space. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tammy Rosato from Council District 4. I'm here in favor of restoring the .45 FAR for R1 zones and counting the front-facing attached garages as floor space. I want to thank you all, the council members, Phyllis, everyone in planning. Thank you.
Shelley Wagers from Council District 5, and I thank you for making mansionization a priority. The original motion this council adopted to amend the BMO identified attached garages as a uniquely damaging loophole, and here's why. Attached garages add 400 square feet of bloat to a house. They eliminate the buffer that a driveway provides. They use wide curb cuts, and they destroy mature street trees. They disrupt the look and feel of many LA neighborhoods. Excluding attached garages is like weighing yourself with 1 foot off the scale. CPC President David Ambrose put it this way: square footage is square footage. And no one is asking you to prohibit attached garages, but they must count as floor space. And again, thank you very much for the leadership, particularly my own council member, Mr. Koretz, and Mr. Wesson is not here to be thanked. And
I'm Amy Galladay, and I'm here again to beg you to please have a BMO that doesn't have a million loopholes of which the developers use. We do not need attached garages. We also need enforcement because it appears that developers are putting up houses even with the ICO that are 1,000 feet over what they should be. So thank you for listening.
Hello, I'm Sarit Finkelstein. I have an architecture degree from USC, practice a lot, and I'm a homeowner. I'm here to ask the Honorable City Council to just postpone your vote on this and until a comprehensive study is done by neighborhood and by region. It is not possible that a house that is so-called big in Studio City is big in the city of or the region of Brentwood. The same house will be a miniature in the region of Brentwood. So it is not just to just go by one protocol for all the properties. So until a study is done, I'm urging you to please postpone your vote. Thank you.
My name is Tamara Bergman. You called me earlier. I was in the ladies' room. I'm at CD4, and I'd like to thank Councilman Koretz and Councilman Rue and all the other councilmen for working on this issue. I want to say that the garages should definitely be counted as area. I live in a historic district, Sunset Square, and many houses were torn down there and are ruining the way that it looks. In other neighborhoods that are not, we're up for being an HPLZ shortly, so we're going to have some protection, but other neighborhoods right nearby are being decimated by these oversized houses. So please return the FAR to 0.45 and include the garages. And regarding what that other woman before me just said, please do not postpone the vote because we're under the threat of the ICO running out and we need this matter resolved right away. Thank you.
Gail Levin, followed by Debbie Guggen, Rochelle Koretz, Michelle Levitt, Michael Levitt, Linda Whiting. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Gail Levin from Council District 5. I'd like to thank Paul Koretz and Councilman Rue. I agree wholeheartedly with the previous speaker. We need to have a 0.45 FAR, and the attached garages must be counted as floor space. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Debbie Gahn with Council District 10. Thank you, Mr. Wesson, for bringing this to Council. And I absolutely agree with the proposals, except please to restore the 0.45 just for clarity, because that's not what I heard at Plum on last Tuesday. And the front-facing garages must count as part of the square footage. So thank you for listening to us on that one. Thank you.
Rochelle Koretz, no relation. I have to put that in as a disclaimer. I'm on the Land Use Committee of Pico Neighborhood Council. I concur with everything Tracy Considine said, everything Shelley Wager says. I am in favor of the 0.45 and want all garage space counted. Thank you all for your time and energies on this. We appreciate it.
Go ahead, please.
Hello, Linda Whiting, Council District 10.
I agree with the restoration of the 45% FAR for R1 zones and request that the front-facing attached garages are included in the square footage. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Michael Levitt. I am a 25-year resident of Pickfair Village. I just want you to restore the .45 FAR for R1 zones, and please count the square footage of the front-facing garage. Please do not turn our neighborhood into one of those new subdivisions where all you see is in the front of the house is a 2 or 3 car garage, so that they can then build a second story over the garage. And those subdivisions, I'm sure you've seen them out in San Bernardino and whatever, are very ugly and do not represent the nice neighborhoods of our city. Thank you.
Okay, before I call the next group of cards, and then the following group of cards after that, and then the following group of cards after that, I'm going to ask, it appears everybody's filled out a card that's in support. Just guessing, but I think this council's in support of it as well. I'm going out on a limb. Having said that, we're going to run pretty tight on some quorum issues, and we have some other items as well. I want to afford everybody that took the time to come down here to speak that ability. Certainly, if you filled out a card, it'll be part of the public record. Or, if you'd like, we can ask everybody that is in favor to please stand, even if you already spoke. I'm going to do that anyway. Everybody that's in favor of this, even if you already spoke, please stand up. Wow. That's phenomenal. So I want to appreciate all of you coming down here, and I want to try to get to a vote on this today as well. Let me ask you, for those who fill out a card, and you're already in the system, that still wish to speak and you haven't, if you still wish to have your 1 minute, in the interest of trying not to be repetitive, because I certainly heard, and we've all heard the same arguments for this, if you still wish to speak, come on up and line up if you haven't yet spoken and you still wish to speak, or if you just want us to simply try to move this along and vote. I'll leave that up to you. So, okay. Everybody who still wants to speak. It's fine. I'm wondering, if we do lose a quorum, we'll have to table it until on Friday. I'm just letting you know in the interest of time, but I wanted to let you know and give you that option as well. So if you could, just go ahead and state your name before you speak, since I didn't call you up. If you don't have a card in the system, if you didn't fill out your name on the screen, then you can't speak. If your name's not already there, we're going to ask you to go ahead and sit down. But if you did already put your name in the system, you can. Just tell us your name before you begin speaking. Thank you very much, sir.
Yes, my name is Steve. I'm in District Number 10, and I want to thank Claretts and Wesson and Rue. And I would just want to say to the other members, I appreciate all the brain power, and hopefully you have the courage and the heart to vote these amendments through, because there is no place like home. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Nina Royal, and I'm with the Land Use Committee of the Sunland Donga Neighborhood Council in District 2, and 7, excuse me. I'm used to saying, I want to thank Tom and the council members that were behind this. Sunland Donga was the initiator of the ordinance to begin with, and I know we left some loopholes out, and we really thank you for closing them, and please, one of the big problems we have are variances. Stop the variances. They're killing us. And we found out that a lot of reasons for the variances after they were given, they didn't do what they said they were for, families and et cetera. So you can have an ordinance all you want, but when it comes to the variances, you change them. So please don't do that. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Renee Safer, and I've been a resident of Laurelwood for 40 years, born in Los Angeles 70 years ago. Very concerned about the mansionization. My husband and I are redoing our house completely. We're subject to the Mulholland corridor restrictions. We're reducing the footprint on our home, and we're trying to stay within all of the guidelines. My request would be that we have separate zoning considerations. For example, we have wide streets, we have sidewalks. We'd like to do a basement, but I'm concerned about the reduction in the cubic yard restriction from 2,000 to 1,000. I think a lot of people would go down in areas where it's geologically sound, not on difficult hillsides, but I think a lot of us want to preserve the neighborhoods, and we would consider the cost of building down if it's acceptable by the city, but that requires moving more cubic yards, and I would like zoning diversity considerations and a reconsideration of that.
Hi, I'm Lori Cohn from CD2. Thank you for hearing our concerns today. And I'm speaking in agreement with many of the people before me, and I agree with the motion, but I want to make sure it's very clear that we want the 0.45 floor area ratio restored for R1, and that the front-facing attached garages are counted as floor space. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ellen Lannett from CD5, and I'm a local residential architect for the past 30 years here in LA, on the Sorrow Land Use Committee for the past 5 years, and I appreciate all the effort by Councilman Koretz and Wesson and the Planning Department for implementing the BMO and ICO, and for all the outreach they've done to each part of every council district, neighborhood, for the uniqueness of that area. And I hope that we will keep that. The item that most destroys special character of Los Angeles. Am I cut off? Okay. I just want to say that this character is the 400 square feet. I'm glad it's back in there, the exemption. I hope this time it stays there. I could give you all the architectural reasons to keep it.
My name is David Garfinkel. I'm chair of the Tarzana Neighborhood Council Land Use Committee and president of the Tarzana Property Owners Association. Both organizations, support the revisions to the R1 FAR, the garage provisions, and the hillside issues that were voiced by prior speakers. We also strongly urge that the articulation bonus be deleted from all single-family zones and that the proportional stories bonus be limited to 60% of the FAR, for all single-family zones. There's no real rationale, and there was no public input to divide the various single-family zones. So we ask you, please preserve the character of all of our communities. Thank you.
Before you start speaking, sir, Mr. Previn, please have a seat. You've exhausted your time. You're wasting this council meeting, and if you do it again, I'm going to ask you to leave the chambers. Have a seat. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Please, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. My name is Skip Haynes. I'm from CD4. I want to thank the council members for doing this. I just want to add very briefly what you are going to be affecting. I live on a street called Grandview Drive. It's where the 1979 Laurel Canyon fire started. It's a 10-foot wide substandard street with 100-year-old water mains. We had 2 major water main breaks on Sunday. We've had 23 in the last 4 years. We have on a 1/2 mile street, we have 8 major building projects proposed, plus a paper street going from Grandview down to Sunset. Adopting these amendments is going to help us immensely. The last 5 projects that have been built in our neighborhood have been built by foreign developers who have flipped the house. So we strongly support the amendments, and thank you very much.
I'm Robert Isley, Council District 5, and I'm Vice President of the La Brea Hancock Homeowners Association, which is mostly located in CD4. So special thanks again to Council members Koretz, Ryu, and Wesson, and also to the City Planning for their fine work. I support the 0.45 for R1 zones and want you to count the front-facing attached garages, but I also wanted to just add one thing. Recode Los Angeles can and is fashioning zones that will answer the concerns of the minority of neighborhoods that have problems with these amendments. Thanks to City Planning for that, and thanks to all of you.
Hello, Adrian Scott Fine with Los Angeles Conservancy. First of all, I want to thank all of the council, especially Council President Wesson, for your leadership in getting us to here today, and especially to Councilman Koretz and his staff and his leadership, long leadership on this issue. We're in full support. This is really important for LA's older and historic neighborhoods. The one tweak that we would ask that you look at today, and it's been brought up multiple times, is about the 400 square feet of front-loaded attached garages. We would like that to be included in total, all 400 square feet. Other than that, we're in very, very much full support for this. Thank you.
Hi, Chuck Ryder, Council District 10. A quality of life vote is what you're doing today. As it is written, it will help minimize encroachment so that in my little two-bedroom bungalow, I can still have a view, sunshine, privacy, open space, trees, and two-car parking on the street. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Douglas Dodds. I'm from Council District 5. I just wanted to reiterate what many people have said today. We need to include 400 square feet of front-facing garages as square footage, not just 200. And we hope the final ordinance will reflect that fact. Thank you.
I'm Donald Lowe, CD5. My compliments to everybody that's been given, and also to the staff of the Planning Department and the staffs of the council people. But we have a giant ticking bomb on the floor of this august place today, and that's the changing of the existing maximum by right grading quantities. The Plum has suggested we keep the R1s at 1,000 cubic yards, and that's correct. But the remaining zones are being increased by effectively 125% of the grading, which is about to leash thousands upon thousands of truck trips through the mountains, destroying the hills, and not protecting the Santa Monica Mountains, nor stopping the out-of-scale buildings that are being proposed there. For that reason, I personally suggest that this August body send this back to planning for another 30 days.
Greetings, I'm Nancy Danovic. I've been in Council District 4 for 40 years now on Citrus Avenue. I wanted to say that time is of the essence. I hope you can get to this today. We sort of feel like the speculators are breathing down our necks, waiting to leap into our neighborhood. I also wanted to point out something that I don't think anybody else has. When the McMansion goes in, they have walls, they have gates, they have barriers. The rest of the block does not, further separating them from our neighborhood and isolating them more like a fortress. I wanted to thank the Plum people and thank all of you for the time.
Good afternoon. I'm Susan Wasserman. I'm a 20-year resident of Council District 10. I'm also speaking on behalf of my neighbor, Patricia Garone, who couldn't attend today because of work. Like people all over the city, I'm deeply alarmed at the prospect of continued mansionization. The out-of-scale homes cast both physical and psychological shadows on our neighboring properties. I want to express my deep gratitude to this council for taking quick and decisive action to address our concerns today. Amendments to the BMO and BHO have a couple of serious flaws, but of course the fix is simple. Please restore the 0.45 FAR for R1 zones, and please count front-facing attached garages as floor space. Deeply appreciate your time and your energy. Thank you.
All right, that concludes the speakers. And Sergeant, if you can come up here for a second, too. I've got a quick question for you. Thank you. Okay, we'll turn it back over to Mr. Koretz.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to once again thank all the people that are here in support. thank the Planning Department, Mr. Wesson, Mr. Rue, and I want to give a special shout out to our colleague Jose Huizar, who has done an incredible job of actually doing the work to make this change happen as chair of the Plum Committee. So I asked all my colleagues for an aye vote, and I want to acknowledge other issues that were brought up. And while I don't think we'll address them today, certainly I think we should take a look at them as this process moves forward. So I thank you, everybody, for your support.
All righty. So no other speakers on the queue. That concludes public comment as well. We'll go ahead and open the roll. Close the roll. You all ready for this now? All right. And tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
And it is unanimous. So thank you very much.
And Mr. President, for clarification, once again, that's the Planning and Land Use Management Committee report as amended by motion 15A.
All righty. And that'll be the order without objection. Okay. So that is approved, and I believe Mr. Koretz wanted that forthwith as well. So without objection, that'll be the order. Mr. Krikorian.
Thank you, Mr. President. Forthwith on number 13, please.
Absolutely, without question. All right. That's the order without objection. Next item, please.
Mr. President, that brings us to items 5 and 11, called special by Councilmember Rue.
All righty. Councilmember Rue.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues. I am incredibly proud to support the Los Angeles LGBT Center's Anita Rosenstein campus project. Over the last year, the center has worked closely with my office and the adjacent residential communities to develop the best possible project for this area. This revolutionary new campus will play a critical role in combating our city's homeless crisis by providing 100 new beds for homeless youth and 135 affordable housing units for seniors and young people. This is 100% affordable. In addition, this new campus will help meet the growing demands for the medical and mental health care, addiction recovery services, HIV, STD service testing, and treatment in our city. Having worked on homeless strategies and social services for over 10 years, I know the Los Angeles LGBT Center will impact even more lives because of this project. Angelinos owe a debt of gratitude to the center for their life-saving work. I especially want to thank Lori Jean, the center's CEO, for her visionary leadership, as well as all the center staff, for their healthcare providers, including doctors and nurses, and the countless community members for their work and relentless support for this project. I urge all my colleagues to vote in support of this very important project. Thank you.
All righty. Thank you very much. We have a number of cards on this as well. Oh, I'm sorry. Public comment was held. The wrong number was up on my screen. So we'll go ahead and open the roll on this item, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
All righty. Here we go. Now we've got the right item and a number of cards. We have 10 cards, 5 for and 5 against. We'll go ahead and open up item 18, called special for cards. Steve Diaz, followed by Thelmy Perez, followed by Bill. Come on up. Maricela and David. Maricela Garcia, David Ewing. And you guys can all come on up and start making your way up. Good morning. Please go ahead. Thank you, sir.
Good morning, City Council members. My name is Steve Diaz. I am with the Los Angeles Community Action Network. LA CAN is here today, extremely concerned around the potential bond financing that's going to be allocated for the Jordan Downs redevelopment project. There's key questions remaining around what exactly is this additional support going to buy us. The project already has in place numerous sets of financing, and there to date has not been a public breakdown of how the affordability is going to occur within this project. We ask this council to really think about what is it that you're accomplishing by supporting this project and this financing. In an era where Proposition HHH passed, it's clear that Angelinos want affordable housing to be created, and it's extremely important that this committee, this council, take the leadership to ensure that every public dollar is being used to impact the most neediest in this time of need. Thank you.
Buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Marisela García y vengo a decir que donde yo vivo, vengo de San Fernando Garden y pues la verdad me siento mal porque están tomando fotografías a las personas sin llegar ningún papel.
¿Me permite? Voy a traducir.
No, es que le digo que vengo de San Fernando Garden.
I come from San Fernando Garden.
Marisela García.
My name is Marisela García.
Donde yo vivo se están metiendo a tomar fotografías sin ninguna información de mandarle a una carta.
Right now they're taking photographs in the area that I live and they are not sending us any information, not a letter.
Y eso no está bien.
And that is not okay.
Porque es como un delito. Para mí es un delito que tomen fotografías sin permiso de nadie.
Because this is not right, because this is like a crime. To me, that is a crime because you are taking photographs of people that, you know, you are not authorizing.
Y hay mucho dinero que se va a invertir en apartamentos y ese dinero quisiera que se convirtiera para proteger a las personas.
And they're going to be investing a lot of money in this apartment, but this money should be used to protect the people, you know, people that don't have
que no tenemos los documentos.
that we don't have the documentation.
Y es todo lo que puedo decir.
That's all I want to say.
Gracias.
Mi nombre es Leticia López.
My name is Leticia Lopez.
Soy residente de San Fernando.
I am a resident of San Fernando.
Soy miembro de Power.
I am a member of Power.
No estoy de acuerdo con eso que dicen de los apartamentos que los quieren, ¿cómo se llama?
I do not agree with that scene that you're saying right now with the apartments that you want to, what's the name?
No estoy de acuerdo en eso. Deberían de ocupar el dinero en algo que de veras se ocupe.
I do not agree. You should be using the money in something that is really useful.
O administrar el dinero en algo que se ocupe de veras en los apartamentos.
Or you should administer the money in something that is really useful for the apartments.
Disculpe por no expresarme bien.
I'm sorry,
Muchas
I cannot
gracias.
express myself. Thank you so much.
Es todo.
That's it.
I will speak in English. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Bill Przlecki. I am the Executive Director of Power. Okay, I think we see quorum here. Yes, we also have concerns about this product. I'm just about this bond issue. I'm going to break it down this way. If we were going to pay $38 million for something, we would want, number one, an itemized receipt to know what we're actually paying for and where our funds are coming from to pay for it. We would want to know if the item was polluted with toxins or not, and we would want to know if the item made sense as a purchase. Bond on the Triple H bond next to this public housing bond, if it's for demolishing public housing that won't actually result in replacement housing for the people who live there, is kind of like buying very expensive humidifier and dehumidifier and running them next to each other. That doesn't really make a lot of sense. So you should ask tough questions about this money before you approve it. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Alexander Harnden. I'm an attorney with the Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles. LAFLA represents many lower-income clients at Jordan Downs and in public housing across the city. And for years, Jordan Downs residents have been demanding a right to remain and a comprehensive environmental testing of the residential portions of Jordan Downs. Despite remediation of extremely toxic land next door and a plume of groundwater pollution migrating underneath the community, this testing hasn't been done, and we still don't have a complete picture of the health risks posed by this project. There's also a strong possibility this project may displace members of the community. The first phase of apartments will be built for people earning 50% of area median income and above, but the average public housing income is around 30% of AMI. These residents have been promised a right to remain there, but yet will not be able to afford the new apartments. This vote would move forward the redevelopment of Jordan Downs without addressing public health concerns of our clients and without resolving their questions regarding displacement. Thank you.
All right, Thelma Perez, followed by David Ewing and Emma Cortez to close. Thank you.
Good morning. Well, that was perfect timing. I had put Ms. Cortez in a car to get to her job. My name is Thelma Perez. I'm the coordinator of the LA Human Right to Housing Collective. I've been working with residents at Jordan Downs for the last 4 or 5 years, just around some issues related to the development as well as to their housing stability. I wanted to just raise a couple of points here in terms of the revenue bonds that are being considered today. One is that it's very concerning that we're using public funding, and this is just the first phase of it, so we're looking at many, many millions more of dollars in public funding to privatize public housing. Yeah, we're talking about privatizing public housing, which is perhaps our most important housing resource that we have right now in our city. There are a couple issues that we think that you all should look at and focus on. One in particular is looking at the income targeting that's happening with this money, which actually does not meet the needs of current residents or residents of Watts as a whole. Also, the contamination in the development is still there. There's been an extensive remediation process that's happened, but there is
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, the 1 minute. Thank you very much. David Ewing? No longer here? Okay. And as you said, Emma already had left, so we can go ahead and take her name off as well. All right, that concludes all the public comment cards. Turn it over to Councilmember Buscaino.
Colleagues, as you heard me said here numerous times over the course of the last couple of years, the transformation of Watts has taken place today. Jordan Downs, once known as the most violent housing development, public housing development site in the country, it's completely turned around. We are now improving the quality of life, investing over $1 billion in Watts, first time in forever, and at the same time reassuring the residents there that along with the housing authority of the one-for-one replacement and ensuring that they are given the first right of refusal once this project's built. So the first phase is moving forward. I'd like to also address the concerns of the environmental issues in and around the location there. DTSC came out and gave a clean bill of health. Moving forward, I do want to recognize Doug Guthrie, Housing Authority, our partners, our private partners that are moving forward that have put together over 100 community outreach meetings with the residents there. In fact, one of my first things I did, and I came to council, was stay the night at Jordan Downs, and I walked most the entire development, hearing from the residents and seeing and hearing firsthand the importance of this project moving forward. And Councilmember Marquise Harris Dawson most recently spoke about the importance of our relationship with the police department there on site, with the Community Safety Partnership Program, and potentially moving forward in other parts of the city. So I'm really excited about moving forward, and I understand there was an opinion piece in the Los Angeles Times this week regarding Jordan Downs. It's put some people on edge, but I do need to correct some of the many inaccuracies stated in the opinion piece. First, there have been over 100 community meetings, as I indicated, regarding this project, and community members have been giving amazing feedback on this project for years. And this project has not been rushed. It's been the results of hard work over the course of the last several years. Second, it's important that we address in this recent editorial piece that the CNI application was not rejected because it was never, ever been reviewed by HUD. Third, I'd like to correct some misconceptions surrounding the concept of funding. You can only secure funding within a year or two of construction, so funding has been secured in phases. So you develop a complete and comprehensive plan, break it up into phases, and then fund the phases over time. And as we proceed with these phases, there are guaranteed one-for-one replacement units, as I mentioned. This is not in question. Lastly, I'd like to address the implications that local and Children's Institute are A, not supported by a community, and B, are not there to help the community, which is just asinine because both of these projects have community support, and there are many residents who have embraced local, and which has brought Watts over 40 jobs. And many of those, as you've heard me stated before here in front of you, these are, we talked about check the box, or today we approved banning the box. Local banned the box before it even opened. So we have an amazing reentry program there at local. And we always say that Watts deserves world-class restaurants. This project before us here with this phase, moving forward with Bureau of Engineering, we're extending Century Boulevard to bring in retail dining along Century Boulevard. Real excited about moving forward on that. So it's my job that the Housing Authority follows through with Section 3 to ensure local hire for this project, and I'm here to ensure that they will be held accountable for that commitment. So excited about moving forward on this first phase. The mayor and I, along with community representatives, stakeholders, and residents, and Housing Authority broke ground just a few months ago. We're looking forward to moving forward and really want to recognize the Watts community for embracing this project moving forward. And we've really excited about investing in Watts, something that we've, in light of recognizing the 50-year anniversary of the first Watts riots last year, that we are moving ahead and putting the 2 Watts riots in our rearview mirror and dedicating investment and economic development to the Watts community. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Okay, with that, we'll go ahead and open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Okay, thank you. That is approved. Next item, please.
Forthwith, please.
Forthwith, requested by Councilmember Buscaino, and we'll go ahead and accept that without objection. All right, that'll be the order.
Mr. President, that brings us to general public comment.
All right. General public comment. We've got cards from Denny Moser, Prentice Jenkins, followed by Sandra Orozco, Mickey Jackson, Oscar Mohammed, Alex Isbicki, and Jacqueline Richardson. And I'm not sure if you are all here. Come on up if you're here. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Greed and deceit. America feel the oppressed government feel greed and deceit, and the message in the holy book of the Muslim that Muhammad, holy book of the Muslim, that sacred book we call the Quran, and Messenger Muhammad's message that he brought to humanity to civilize the world. William Penn said the people must be governed by God if don't transfer with rule. Donald Trump is Satan. President Barack Obama said Donald Trump is not qualified to be president of the United States. Black America live in super poverty and filth crops in America. Whites America live in poverty. The Jews live on the heights. Remove the homeless from downtown Skid Row off the sidewalk. No economic dignity. We need better leadership in Los Angeles. We need affordable houses for all races who are destitute, have lost their house for foreclosure in a different situation. We need fair distribution of the wealth. We should end political racism. We should. Hey man, you're a lie.
Thank you.
Not no two.
Next,
Not no.
thank you. Next speaker, please. Sir, it's one minute. You're disrupting the meeting now. Thank you. Sir, there's a timer. You're disrupting the meeting. Please. Thank you very much.
Prentice Jenkins, creator of Peace Between Residents and Police, also City Life newsletter. I'm a researcher also, and one of the things I've done since 2004 is gone back and looked at the presidential races, the one before, the current one and the one before, and I looked at this one, and I recognized one thing. Whatever you believe, Donald Trump did not win that election. He cheated. Like his sister said, hey, I learned a long time not to go against Donald because he always wins. How does he win? He cheats. That's the one thing she didn't tell you, which she was trying to tell us. Donald Trump will not be inaugurated as President of the United States, he'll be in handcuffs and on the way to jail. And Hillary Clinton will be inaugurated as the 47th President of the United States. Laugh if you want, but remember Mr. Jenkins told you that.
Mickey Jackson with the Coalition to Preserve LA. I agree a great deal with what the people who were talking about Jordan Downs says. There's much talk about concern for homelessness. Well, homelessness begins with people losing their homes. And losing their homes is like a virus that is overtaking Los Angeles. It's a virus caused by greed. It's a virus caused by corruption. It's a virus caused by collusion with corruption. It's a virus caused by looking the other way. And I think this is kind of the temple to all of that. We need, if housing, homeless is an emergency, and people, I think it's an emergency, I agree with anybody who says that, then treat it like an emergency. Don't give a bunch of money to different people to build something in 10 years. Take over buildings now that are vacant. Take over buildings now like the old police unit. Make them safe to house people in an emergency fashion.
Thank you. Thank you.
This concerns holographs. Holographs operate by battery. Some of them are in jail. Some of the holographs are homeless. When the labor unions find out that holographs have a lot of jobs, they're going to raise the devil every place they can. Some holographs, I heard, operate holographs, and some of them are in the Army. The vote in every state should be recounted to take in the holograph vote if they voted. I don't know what they did. The holographs operate by battery. They're not born. You can ask the Russian people that come into this meeting or outside this meeting, how do the holographs operate and their limitations and their capabilities? They're updated probably, I don't know how often they're updated. And they wouldn't mind showing you how they operate and their applications. You shouldn't ask them into your home because they have real good memories. They'll know how to get in and out of your house real quick.
All right, that concludes general public comment. What do we have next?
Mr. President, Council has motions for posting and referral.
Excellent. Those are posted and referred. Thank you very much.
Desk is clear.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Do we have any announcements, colleagues? Yes. Councilmember Bonner.
In the interest of council members being well fed, T Committee will start a half hour late at 1:30.
Great. Okay. So Councilmember Bonin is providing lunch for everybody today. Thank you so much for that. And any other announcements? Seeing none, do we have adjourning motions? We do. So we can have everybody please rise for adjourning motions. Councilmember Rue.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, today it was with sadness that I would like to adjourn our meeting in memory of Concepcion Molina, former Supervisor Gloria Molina's mother, who passed away on Sunday, December 4th, 2016. And I know Councilmember Jose Huizar wanted to join in on this motion as well, but I think he had to leave. But Concepcion Molina was born and raised in Casas Granadas, Chihuahua, Mexico, where she also married her husband, Leonardo Molina, who she was married for 65 years. They moved to California, where their 10 children were born and raised. The eldest includes former Los Angeles County Supervisor Gloria Molina, followed by Irma, Graciela, Domingo Leonardo, Berta, Mario, Sergio, Danny, Lisa, and Olga. Concepcion was a devoted wife and mother who raised her children with the values of dedication to family, integrity to all you do, and the importance of loyalty and strong work ethics. One of her greatest skills, next to cooking, was her strong budget skills. She was a good steward of her family's funds and ran a successful household on limited means, stretching every cent to provide her family with home-cooked meals and the best possible basic necessities. She was dedicated to her children's well-being and also ensured they did well in school by doing whatever it took to help them succeed in their studies. As a strong believer in culture and the arts, Concepcion also instilled this passion in all her children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, and visiting their grandparents' ranch in Mexico so that they would always remember their heritage. Was an annual ritual as Concepcion and Leonardo packed all 10 Molina children and themselves in a crowded station wagon for the 15-hour drive to Mexico. The responsibility of family as her first priority in life, Concepcion ran a loving yet strict household, giving her in return the respect, admiration, and love for her family. Her home was always open to anyone, and members of the family could be found gathered at her home in Pico Rivera any day of the week. Her family will miss her greatly, and will also miss her homemade tortillas, arroz, and frijoles, and the abundance of love she spread equally among her entire family. She is survived by 10 children, 26 grandchildren, 22 great-grandchildren, and 2 great-great-grandchildren. Concepcion Molina is one of the many Mexican immigrants who have come to this country seeking a better life and instilling a love for this country among her many children and grandchildren. She is, in the truest sense, an American success story. May she rest in peace.
Thank you. Any other adjourning motions, colleagues? Seeing none, that concludes this council meeting. We are adjourned. Thank you very much. Be safe.